All right, very good. The time being 7:08 on April 13th, 2020. A quorum of the planning board being present, I call this meeting to order. So we'll let everybody know, just as you're watching on TV, if you want to call in on any of the matters this evening, the call-in number is 978-771-0819. If for some reason you get a busy, that's because the queue can only hold 3 people at a time. So as we drop people, spots will open up, so, feel free to call back. We'll also give a little extra time for people to call in because we know there's a little bit of a delay between the live and the TV. And those 2 channels for the television are Comcast, channel 99, and Verizon, channel 33. All right, so with that, on to the first item on the agenda, which is approval of minutes for March 30th, 2020. Motion on
Yeah,
that?
Mr. Chairman, Vinnie Fratelli here. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of March 30th, 2020 as written.
All right, do I have a second? All right, we have a second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also
moving
like
on.
to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 6th, 2020 as written.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, that takes care of the minutes. Moving on to agenda item B, committee reports, administrative action. Are there any committee reports or administrative action at this time? I'm sorry, committee reports at this time.
None.
All right,
All set,
Hearing
Mr.
none.
Chairman, none here.
all right, hearing none. Moving on to administrative actions, we have agenda item B1, B2, which is 181 Pine Street A&R. Do you have anybody on for 181 Pine Street?
Chairman, I thought I saw Matt Hammer on earlier.
Matt, you have to unmute yourself.
How about that?
Here we go.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. For the record, Matt Hammer, Lamplex Engineering and Surveying, Lowell, Mass. I'm here this evening with an approval not required plan for the property, which is at 181 Pine Street, as well as tax map 45, lot 1 for the assessors. As the board may recall, last April, there was an A&R plan submitted by Medford Engineering of April of last year, where tax map 45 lot 1 was subdivided into a series of lots, of which there were 5 individual lots done at that time. We are here tonight to revise the lot lines for lot 3 of that Medford Engineering A&R plan, as well as 181 Pine Street. And those 2 lots are both individually owned by a Pine and Whipple LLC, which is also James Andella. And also the lot 3 is owned by a Brian Kroll. And those lot line revisions are shown on the plan. You can see the lot lines that are being modified. They're a dash line on that A&R plan. And it's creating a lot 4A, which has 170 feet of frontage in a lot area of 49,007 square feet, and also has a perimeter calculation of 1,213 with a Z value of 40.40, which complies with the Tewksbury zoning bylaw. And then we're reconfiguring where the existing house is at 181 Pine Street, which is proposed as lot 5A, and we're doing a lot line modification to that lot. That lot 5A has frontage on of 309.92 lineal feet in a lot area of 43,614 square feet. And the Z value on that lot is 48.77. With this A&R plan, we're also creating 2 parcels. And the parcel that are also being created with this plan is this parcel 5B, which is next to 181 Pine Street. And that parcel B is being created because there's a sewer stub that was put out onto Pine Street. And that's going to be providing a utility easement to access this lot 4A. And then there's another parcel being created, which is 3A.
Matt, can you hold on for 1 second, Matt? I'm sorry. Can everybody that's other than like the members and Mr. Hammer, can everybody else make sure that they're muted? Because something's coming in background that every time Matt speaks is making it hard to hear him. All right, Matt, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a larger parcel, which is parcel 3A. And that parcel 3A is going to be the parcel of which is going to comprise of the open space residential design subdivision, which we preliminarily had shown the board at the last planning board meeting, I believe was on March 30th. And that's my presentation for the subdivision, the adjustment of the lot lines.
All right, so with that, start with Mr. Fowler. Mr. Fowler, are you there?
Yes, I just said good evening.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think we lost it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
All right. The only question I had was, Mrs. McGinty gave us a comment sheet, table of dimensional requirements. That's for lots, I believe, right? Anna?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Because someone thought it meant the frontage for the lot 3A. Lot 3A is, as it stands, not a building lot, correct?
That's correct. That is labeled as a parcel.
Should that be labeled not a building lot?
Well, it's
At this
buildable in the way that, you know, we're going to be using that for the open space residential design for the special permit. But that's why we labeled that as a parcel instead of a lot.
Okay. Are you gonna have a road in there or driveway? Or road?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Driveway or road?
There's going to be a right of way that's laid out from Pine Street,
Right.
which was that plan that I mentioned that we went over briefly at the end of March, that meeting at the end of March.
That being the case, I'm all set.
All right, and Mr. Fratelli,
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Ryder.
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the chair is all set as well. What is the pleasure of the board on the A&R as submitted?
Motion to close.
We just need, I think on this one, we just need the motion to endorse.
That's right. Motion to endorse.
All right, so we have a motion to endorse. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. I'll poll around. Mr. Fowler,
Aye.
Mr. Fattalia,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder.
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. So unanimous for endorsement of the A&R. And as I understand it, the A&R is in the office, so we'll get that signed.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Moving on, all right, moving on to the main portion of the agenda. I'll make one comment, which is agenda item J, which is 325 Marshall Street. That applicant is going to, when we get there, is having that hearing continue to our April 27th meeting. So if for any reason anyone came on expecting to hear anything on 325 Marshall Street, that matter will not be heard this evening. Carrying to the agenda, we have agenda item C, which is the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Did we, at our last meeting, did we officially continue this to 5/11?
Stephen, I thought we did.
I thought so too, but it's on here this way, and I just didn't know if it was just a placeholder or if we didn't do something we were supposed to do. So as far as I know, we've already continued this to our May 11th, 2020 meeting. So I don't believe there's any further action needed here.
Mr. Chairman, I don't
Yes.
think it was on the agenda officially last meeting. I think this is the first time it's actually
Okay, so
posted.
we jumped. the
We
gun.
have to open
All
this
right.
and then continue it.
All right, good enough. So that's what it was. Okay. So with that, then, a motion to waive the public reading for the proposed zoning bylaw amendments.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. And with that, we're going to move to continue the zoning bylaw amendment hearing to May 11th, 2020 at 7 PM. Is that correct? We think it's 7 already, do we? Yep, so 7 PM. So do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for May 11th, there's a item already at 7 PM, so it'll have to be 7:05.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll make it for 7:05. That's fine. All right, so do we have a motion to continue this to 7:05 on May 11th?
So moved.
Oh,
We have a motion made. We have a
Second.
second? Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to agenda item D, 984, 970, 986 Main Street, Center Fire Station, continued from our 4/6 meeting. Do we have anyone here for the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Richard Montori, Town Manager.
All right, Mr. Montori, do you have anything that you want to present at this time?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think the applicant is all set. We've presented everything we wanted to present. We've addressed any issues that were asked of us as far as we know. We've met all the requirements of the bylaw. And I think we're all set on our end.
All right, so let me take this around. We'll start with Mr. Fowler.
First of all, I have a couple of comments, and then I'll explain my reasons why I'm reading these off. The conservation heard this back in, 11 months ago. We didn't hear it until a month ago. I know what's not required, but it's always nice if you have a preliminary plan or your thoughts, so that if we have any questions at that time, and we've done this a lot of times, but I know it's not required in this, but it makes things easier when it is done that way. I'll bring some of the thoughts in mind. The light application didn't go in until just recently. So we really are at the mercy of the state on whether or not they're going to approve it as designed, which is not on a plan, but is thought out. Whereas if it was done earlier, and we had the, preliminary meeting, it would be, could be addressed. I understand that 5 or 6 of those months were taken up because we were going to go down Woodland. And once you found out you didn't have to, you weren't going to go down there, you just, that eliminated the necessity for a conservation committee meetings or hearings. There are other items that, if I started to bring them all up, someone might think I was nitpicking. But I'm not, because it was very difficult to go through this as we were going through it, instead of having all the facts in front of us. I know the chief did a lot of work on this, but it didn't solve the needs of the planning board. We've had a tough time on this. Even the people who voted in a preliminary manner, yes, a week or so ago, said, all things aren't as I'd like them, but so many words, paraphrasing. But it is what it is. No, I don't like that. It is what it is. We haven't had the chance. If we did this earlier, we could have addressed probably most of these items, if not all of them, instead of waiting down to the bitter end. And the reason I say this is because when we started to have the hearing a month ago, these are some of the facts that were given to us. It's a very restricted lot, difficult to work with. Those are the presenters. So that sort of set the tone in your mind. But having said that, I've had people ask me, questions were asked, why didn't we do this before? The answer, there was always something that cut it off. In other words, questions were asked of us, of me and other members, why didn't they build a new fire station years ago instead of letting it get to this condition? Well, the answer to us was, there was always something else that was coming up. And I can understand that. But you have to prioritize. So to the point of prioritizing, for the 16 years from the last plan, the price has probably doubled. But we had a high school, we had other things within the town. We have a new school going up next to the Ryan School. I kind of wonder, to be honest with you, why we're building a fire station in the Ryan, in a school next to the Ryan School the same year. That's quite a bit of money. But it is, as someone said, it is what it is. Those are the facts. The school is ready for us. I think we might even have a vote on it this evening. Not positive of that, but I think we might. The fire station, therefore, is something that is dearly needed, without a doubt. It was dearly needed 10 years ago. So I guess I'll have to say this. For the firefighters in the offices who work, yes?
Want to see this?
Somebody still has their, I'm sorry, Bob, let me just interrupt for a second. Somebody doesn't have their themselves muted. So I think their conversation is being picked up while Mr. Fowler is speaking. So if we could just
I
make
just
sure
heard
everybody Yeah, if everybody could just mute, and then we'll have Mr. Fowler continue. All set.
Thank you. Thanks. For the firefighters and the officers that work in the station, their job on their own job, their present job, when they go out of a call, is to overcome problems. And that's why they're being dispatched. And that's why people call, because they have a problem. They have a fire or emergency, medical problems. And that's what the job entails. Discover the problem and work it out. Well, I think what they're going to have to do is, I guess I'll close with that aspect of it. And say this. I was hoping we could get further in this. I presented to Mr. Sadwick for Mr. Montori a plan. I guess it wasn't liked. The plan was, instead of public traffic and the firefighters and the apparatus going down the driveway, there's that. I got music. Instead of going down the driveway at one time, and the first day we had the meeting, I said, I could picture what's going to happen here. The fire department's going to be coming out on a call, and someone's going to be coming in, and I use the term elderly person coming in, and all of a sudden they see these red lights and siren, and a big red truck coming down at them. They're going to put their hands up and go, oh my God. Well, I still have thoughts to that. And believe me, you can't say it doesn't happen because we've seen it happen. So my plan was, my idea was to have the driveway out front only used for the firefighters driving the apparatus in or out. There'd be no confusion, no messing up. There'd be a sign there. In fact, if you need be, there could have been a gate. Yeah, the gate would be energized and at the same time as the lights out on Main Street. In driveway to the for the firefighters going to work at the station, and any public that wanted to come into the station will come in off North Street, under the power lines, behind the church. Take a left into the parking lot of the Bank of America, and that's the parking lot we're going to have as part of the plan, because there's no place on the plan of our land, for lack of a better word, for anybody to park. So they'll be coming in, take a left into the parking lot and park. Firefighters coming and going to work, any public coming in. And that lot would also be used for the church for overflow on certain days. Days of when they have a lot of people at the church and they don't have room on their lot. So I thought that might solve a lot of the problems. I know it solved mine. And I told Mr. Sadwick, if you give me the go-ahead, not to do it, but I will talk to Mr. Battaglia and hopefully get his okay in it. I did talk to him afterwards, and he said he thought that was a good idea. But the powers that be don't believe that. They didn't want to do any more on this than what we've done so far. So they said, no, we're just going to present what we have on paper. So I just want to let the public know that we tried to iron this out in a manner that we could probably work with, and whatever the cost would be based on what has been spent so far, wouldn't be that significant. It'd be not a roadway, it'd be a driveway. And hopefully I was hoping that would have worked, and we could have had a tentative agreement with the power company to do that. And I even said to Mr. Sadwick, I would approve this from my end without, even without getting a final okay, I would approve it, subject to the final release from the power company. So that's not how it works. So I'll close, and I hopefully, I know some of the people will understand this. I'll close on this because my vote is to support the firefighters and officers that will work in that station. And because that's what they're taught, to overcome adversity. They'll overcome and they'll make it work for them. And they'll make it work for the town. So to them, I say, be safe and be good. That's what I said at my retirement party, and I've said that all my life. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Fowler. Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll open again by asking the chief how the firefighters are doing in dealing with this pandemic and the issues involved in the town and how they are holding out as far as the quarantine.
Thank you for asking. They're doing well under the conditions that they're all working under right now. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions, and I will actually close as well, but it may take a little while. So I guess, Chief, I have a question for you as the chief. I know you mentioned that we do a lot of training weekly at the firehouse, or you do a lot of training at the firehouse weekly. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now that's done mostly where? On Town Hall Ave, out in front of the apron, or how's that work?
A lot of it is done inside the building for the most part, and we go off-site for a lot of the training also.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, the new firehouse that you're proposing, all right, where will that training happen? That's going to be happening outside.
The same way that it happens now, if we use the front ramp for training, it'll be outside. The features of this firehouse have a lot of built-in training props inside the building that we have designed into the building, like all modern fire stations. So a lot of that training will be done inside too. We will still do off-site training because that can't be duplicated in the station. Some things, when we're cutting holes in roofs and doing door breaches and things like that, we have a lot of local developers and builders that donate property to us for training before they get torn down. So we do utilize those properties whenever we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. Will there be any training in the happening in the parking lot at all?
Generally, hose evolution, sometimes with the newer firefighters, taking hoses off the hose beds and packing them back up. So there is some training that goes on the apparatus ramp. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So there'll be no need for a hose tower, right? At this facility? I see a lot of them on other firehouses.
Right. Modern fire hose generally does not, other than forestry hose, does not need to be hung out and dried anymore, just because of how it's made up now.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have a question for the design team, if we could. Going on a little farther, what Mr. Fowler said about the access into the facility. Was there any discussion about a separate entrance for the public into the firehouse at any time, or was it always just the in and out using the same ramp?
As long as it's been just this site, we've only been talking about using that one ramp going in and out of the site.
So would that possibility have helped in our planning at all, or if that was ever an option?
Well, the width wouldn't have accommodated that, which is why we had the shared ramp.
Okay.
The width wouldn't have accommodated a separate drive for the public and a separate drive for the fire trucks.
Okay. I just foresee a problem with somebody exiting the firehouse and then a fire fire apparatus coming in behind them, and then the public driver, whoever it may be, panicking and not knowing where to go and what to do, and causing a safety concern as they enter out onto Main Street. So, just a concern I had about that. So with that said, I guess my next question will be Mr. Montori. Do you think Bank of America will be willing to entertain maybe some access by the public to the firehouse parking lot and make the entrance and exit for fire vehicles only?
We asked that in the beginning of the process, and they made it clear that they did not want that. But, you know, that's not to say we wouldn't ask again. They've been cooperative in providing us land for parking in the back. But, you know, we can ask again. But it's doubtful. It's doubtful because we did try in the beginning.
Okay. So I guess my next question for Mr. Montori as well is, I had sent you an email about a possibility, maybe, I'm not sure if you've investigated that at all, or where that stands and regarding Bank of America discussions and so forth and relocation. Was that ever addressed or brought about?
So after I received your email, Vinny, as I think I responded to you that I'd look into it, I emailed the contact I have with Bank of America shortly after that. He said he would look into it. I have not heard back from him. In the past, when we've talked to them about selling the land or giving us the first right of refusal on purchasing the land if they did want to sell, they have not been in favor of that. But I did follow up with your question to them, and I just have not heard back. It's just a big, especially what's going on right now. I'm not sure how long things would take to get an answer, but.
Right, so you don't mind if I explain that scenario, do you?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, what I have brought to Mr. Montori's attention is the fact that Bank of America is a great site. If we ever had that piece of land added to this particular parcel, I think it would make an ideal location for a center fire station. Got a big piece of property. It has, I think, everything we need. They've been generous enough to give us parking in the back, which is great, but the actual full site itself would be a bonus, and I told them it would be a grand slam, never mind a home run. So what I have proposed to Mr. Montori was maybe we address the possibility of seeing if Bank of America would be interested in relocating to the now vacant bank, Eastern Bank building down on Main Street, about a mile down the road, and give them an incentive as far as taxes or something like that to facilitate the possible transfer. It would allow them to move into an existing bank building, being Eastern Bank, all set up, drive-through, interior vault, and so forth and so on. And I thought that if we could secure that property, it would be a great fit for us. And again, it'd have to be incentive laden as far as giving them some type of benefits for doing that for us. So, you know, I also think that banks of today are not going to be the banks of tomorrow. You see banks closing and relocating all the time. I was just made aware of a Bank of America building, as a matter of fact, in Groton, that closed, that had been there for years. Similar to the bank we have in Tewksbury, a very colonial-looking bank, and they're closed and relocation. We relocated and just closed completely because there wasn't enough need and use of it. I mean, the millennials of today are using banks maybe once a month, I would say, just to guesstimate, but I don't go in that often either. So most of it's done online or at ATM. So, and it's pretty evident by, you know, Enterprise Bank and Salem 5 Bank all having little strip mall sites, and that's it. So I question whether they do need that whole lot, but I guess that's for another discussion, and maybe they'll come through again and make a presentation to us. But I thought it was a good idea, but obviously we get no response. So I'll go on with another statement I have, and this goes to the firefighters that I've received a couple letters for. You know, I am all in favor of a firehouse. There's no question in my mind. The firehouse is what we need in the town of Tewksbury. So I guess like any other building in town, firehouse, school, library, police station, town hall. I mean, the residents of Tewksbury are the ones that are going to be paying for all these developments. And I sure hope that we make the right call in this firehouse going forward. It's not a firefighter issue because even though they use the house, it's a town issue where the town taxpayers, we want to give them the best. We want to get this right. So that's been my intention all along. So I hope you can understand that. Anybody that's on this committee and board and my board members as well, that I'm looking out for the best interest of the town here and not just the firefighters, because it is a public building, it's a town building, and that's what it is. So so we represent the 30,000 people in Tewksbury, and that's part of why we need to get this right. So, and one of the concerns I have about the parcel and the plan is the parking. I mean, I don't know any building in town, town building, that doesn't have its own parking. So we are leasing this land from Bank of America for 10 years. Is that right, Mr. Montori?
That is correct.
Okay. So I guess the question to you again is, what happens in 10 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, when Bank of America says to us, listen, we're selling the property, the banks are no longer a viable interest for us, we're relocating to a smaller facility, not have to pay the taxes and all that stuff. What do we do for parking?
At that point, we would just go back to our original plan, which is to build parking on a town-owned lot behind the station.
Okay, that's access through National Grid property, right?
No, that would come in off of Woodland.
Okay,
So there's land there. We just thought this was a better option at this time. If we have a problem, we'll do that.
okay. All right, so that's the option going forward if we need to get parking down the road.
If under a worst case scenario, yes.
Okay. All right. I had put together a little presentation that I would like to put up now, but before I do that, I'd like to ask the design team if they had any ideas or any intentions of providing us any type of 3D or virtual type of presentation to show us the building location. Was that ever presented to you as an option, or is it something you do?
I'm sorry. We did do the 3D renderings that we submitted to you. Were you thinking of something other than that?
Well, I was just thinking of a scenario of where the building sits on the land with regard to how much we have for frontage and where the parking would be. I know I've seen it on paper, but nothing really in a virtual reality type of 3D design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have not prepared anything like that at this time.
Okay. So if Brian, if you could put that presentation that I put together up, just wanted to show some people. This was done by drone, not the greatest, but I guess. But so picture number 1, which is actually picture number 2 on this scenario, is a picture of the lot from the rear. It shows the wooded area right there, which is part of the site where the firehouse is probably going to be located. With parking with the Bank of America to the left, the McDonald house in front of us, and the Sullivan property to the right. So slide number 3, if you could, Brian. There's another picture of the actual site. Kind of shows the approximate location with the site there. Again, it shows Town Hall, TD Bank, Firehouse in the background. Going on to the next slide, Brian. That would be a front view of the site, showing the McDonald house, the entryway in, with the lot in the back. Again, kind kind of restricted in my opinion, but yes, it is what it is. And the next slide, Brian, would be another view of the nice piece of property Sullivan owns there. That would be a nice fit for us. Just don't know if we'd ever be able to get that. Firehouse would be pretty close to that lot line. Again, showing the overall view of the site. Next one, Brian, if you could. Shows another view of the building, lot line, and so forth and so on. And then next one, Brian, if you would. That shows the entry view of the new firehouse from Main Street. Take into effect the fact that we have to take the left boundary over about 10 feet or so, which closes that entryway a little bit more. It gives you a presentation of possibly where those cars are, or maybe in the back is where our probably line would start as far as fire department, town use, I would guess. I'm not quite sure if that's accurate or not, but in the last slot, Brian, is the actual full overview of the site. That shows our parking in the back, but it also shows if we were able to secure the Bank of America property, how much that would enhance what we have for a new fire station going forward. So I hope we won't throw that opportunity off the table if it comes about. I can only hope that in the near future that property becomes available to us as a town to put in a fantastic fire station in the center of town on a great location that's visible and will be a landmark for the town of Tewksbury. So with that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Battaglia, just as a reminder, the presentation materials, they just need to be turned into the town so they can be added to the file.
I've done that already, Mr. Chairman, but thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll move on to Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will echo a couple of points. You know, I was concerned about the entrances in the beginning. The design team, you know, showed through the turning radius and so forth that they were able to provide safe access in and out of that fire station the way it sits. I'll agree that as we received a couple letters from some firefighters in support as well as opposition. However, there's a big point that we have to look at here is finances. And in light of what's happening right now in the town and across the state and across the country with the COVID-19, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know what 6 months are going to bring. And revenue is going to be a concern. And I think we have to look at every last penny that this town is spending. And as Mr. Montori presented to us last meeting, the amount of money that we've expended to date. And that's a big concern to walk away from that right now. At the end of the day, would we like it a little closer to the street? Absolutely. But I think if we go forward with this station where it is, it's going to provide the firefighters with an opportunity to have a state-of-the-art facility. It's also going to give us the opportunity that if the Bank of America property does become available, or if the McDonald property or the Sullivan property does become available, that opens up the opportunity for parking, change the frontage of that station very easily in terms of driveway access, things of that nature, at a considerably less cost than it would be to start over again. I think if those came to fruition, as Mr. Fratalia stated, that would be amazing. But in light of the pictures and the conditions of the current fire station, waiting for that to happen, that's a gamble that I'm concerned about taking. And also to what Mr. Montori stated last week, that we would have to go back to town meeting again for reallocation of funds to a different parcel. Am I correct in stating that, Mr. Montori?
That is correct, Mr. Ryder.
And that's a concern to me in light of what may happen with the economy. And it's a concern that if we don't move forward with this, and this comes back in front of the town, it could potentially be voted down. And the only people that we're going to affect here are the firefighters. I understand. I shouldn't say that the only people. We are affecting the residents too, because we're not going to get a new fire station. But the guys and girls that work every day in this facility deserve something better than they're working in. And I think we can work towards obtaining those other parcels. And we've talked about, there's the talks of the beautification committee for the center of town, the ideas of changing that around. If we were able to get those other parcels, yeah, there's some things that could be done over there with parking, some open space that would really enhance that building. But I think waiting for a what if or a possibility if the building company closes or the owner decides to sell, I think that's a big, big gamble. And we're gambling at the expense of the firefighters that have to work in that station until this comes to fruition. You know, would I like the perfect location and the perfect fire station? I don't know if we'll ever have that perfect fire station in the perfect location in everyone's eyes. But I have to look to Chief Hazel that spent a lot of time, and I appreciate everything he did, and Mr. Montori, Mrs. Sadwick, and the design team. There's some things that, you know, the modern look at a fire station, you know, that's an opinion, but that's you know, I'll step back from that. I want to make sure that it's safe, and the firefighters can get in and out of that location. There's a few hurdles that we still have to cross. We have to make sure that DOT is going to approve the lighting package out there. We understand that that's in the conditions. I think the crosswalk, as I talked about last week, Mr. Montori, that is another thing that we have to address as part of the conditions. But I think after we address all those things in the conditions and look towards the future, what we could potentially get and do with those properties if they become available, as Mr. Fratalia said, that can be a grand slam. But we have to start, you know, we got to start with a single, and then, you know, and see if we can develop on that. You know, I just think we have to really look at the firefighters right now. You know, what they're working and the conditions they're in. They're out dealing with this virus every day, and they have to go back to that station. That's concerning to me, along with the amount of money that we've spent so far. So I was one of the biggest stick in the mud about the traffic out there, but I think they did a good job in over time getting us the information that we needed. And I think it really can be a great fire station and work towards gaining those other parcels that can make it even a better and ideal place. That's it for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rada. Before I go through a couple of things that I have, I had a question that I hadn't asked yet that only sort of kind of came into my mind this week. We've commented a few times now on how the fire station is in a poor condition, certainly not the condition we'd want or hope for our firefighters. But it's been said that it's been in that kind of condition for a while. What I'm asking at this point is, how far are we from not being able to use that building? I mean, is that something that's, in the near future where it's at a point at which it's no longer safe and not just simply no longer ideal?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure we could put a time frame on it. And
I'm
I
only
don't-
asking for a ballpark idea. I'm just saying, we're at a point now where I know we've already said doing repairs is not cost efficient and remodeling it, whatever, are not realistic options. What I'm saying is, in one of these examples that was used, it was going to require relocation and all those things. I'm just curious, that sort of made my head think, are we somewhat close to a point at which we're in danger of this building if we don't get a new building going and up and built? We could find ourselves in a situation where the center fire station literally cannot be used.
I just don't want to sound, I don't want to pile on to at this point to say we're at that point. We're concerned.
Let me make it a little bit easier for your guesstimate. How's this?
Yeah.
If this didn't go forward, the time frame we're looking at for coming up with the new site, new plan, and all that, and construction pushes this thing out a couple of years beyond the completion of the building that we're reviewing here.
Correct.
Within that time frame, might it be possible that the center fire station could get to a point where it could not be used before we could get a new building built? Not an absolute, but is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, it could be, but, we would make sure that we did things to continue having it function.
Well, much like you did with the schools, but really at some point they've outlasted their usefulness. You're in danger of getting to a point where they could be unsafe to the point where you have to start considering non-use.
Right.
Is that an accurate statement?
Right. Yeah, I think so. We'll be throwing good money after that.
Okay. All right. So that brings me to my next comment. And I guess it's sort of what Mr. Ryder just touched on. My first, obviously the first and foremost thing here is, getting a building that does what it needs to do for the town, firefighters and the town together. But there is a financial consideration that goes into that equation that I just want to make sure, we're thinking about all those dollars. And we've already discussed, if this were not to go forward, the amount of money that's left on the table from this project that's already been spent, that, is out the door. And then how that basically becomes a doubled number because you have to do the exact same amount of work a second time around if you had to go try and find a new site. Add to that changes in construction costs, changes in acquisition costs if we're talking about properties now, which I know a lot of discussion has been about other properties, but I think what gets lost in that comment sometimes is how much those cost, because those are not currently numbers that you either have, but you do need to add them in on top of all the costs that have already gone out the door now. So, there is no single site by itself, it would seem, even in the discussions that we've had in these meetings, that would do what we need it to do all by itself. Every one of these considerations that people have thrown out requires the acquisition of property on top of everything else, design, and all those things. So there's those dollars. And, I only want to give these as informational. I'm not trying to sway anybody. I just want to make sure that these are all considered. Another one to consider, I think, is, and I'm not saying how this would go or whether it would happen or not, but I want to make sure too that the members know too that if this, the petitioner has the right to appeal our decision. In the event that happens, the town is paying for both ends of a lawsuit, if that's what happens. Because someone's going to have to defend the planning board and someone's going to be representing the town. So on top of all these other costs, we're footing the bill for both ends of a lawsuit. If that gets to that point, if it is appealed. Like I said, I have no idea if it would be, but if it got to that point, that's another number we need to add into this, because at the end of the day, the court's going to come up with one of two decisions, most likely. It's either going to remand it back to us, at which point we're going to have to make another decision, which with the, I don't know if they'd end up doing a constructive approval because of the way the new rules are about the time frame. I don't know. But if it gets thrown back at us, we're right in the back in the same situation. And if they give it a constructive approval, then this thing's going to go forward, and the things that we normally do to try and make sure the projects get done, we're kind of out of it at that point. So I just want to make sure that we're also considering that as some of the costs and potential outcomes for the project, when we make our decision. I did get, a couple of phone calls from folks, nobody that wanted me to say, please give my name, but, they did want to give some thoughts of what they had. And one person said something that struck me. I don't have a firsthand knowledge of this. The only person on the board that would have a firsthand knowledge of this would be Mr. Fowler. But one person referred to this as, don't make this board's version of the market basket decision. Now, I only know that by reference, and as I think Mr. Fowler will be able to speak to it better than me, but I believe the reference is to the one of the warehouses and an attempt to put it in Tewksbury that did not pass and ended up in the town that I do not name. So it was an interesting comment to have someone make, and my take of that was that it was meant in terms of the amount of money that that would lose as a result, or cost us as a result of not approving the fire station. Again, I don't give it as I'm not trying to use it as a reason for people to change their mind or not change their mind. It's just information that I thought worthwhile of just mentioning. As far as for the project itself, there were a couple of thoughts that I had that I've made reference to. So I'll throw those out now for any of the other members for any consideration they may have for them. The first one was, in some of the conversations, I had asked where permits are currently handled. And as my understanding, the permits are currently handled at South Fire Station. Am I correct?
That's correct, South Fire Station.
Okay. So one of my considerations, and this was meant to address some of the concerns about the ins and outs on the Center Fire Station with the access as we have it now, was a suggestion of having that remain that way. I understand it's not ideal. I understand it's not what people would like. However, it would cut down on some of the in and out traffic to the site beyond the emergency vehicles themselves and people who may come in there for emergency purposes. But if the day-to-day sort of, the one day-to-day sort of thing, which is the permits, were kept out of there, it would eliminate some of the traffic that could potentially get in the way on the site. So that was one thing. Like I said, I know it's not, it may not be what everybody wants, but if it was the difference between making, helping members feel a little more comfortable about the site and how many people might be coming on and off on any given day, I offer it up as consideration.
Mr. Chairman, could I make a comment on that?
You may.
As far as the permitting remaining down south, what we did lose when we did that, moving the permitting down south, is we lost the South Station Community Room. That's the site that we're using right now for the Fire Prevention Office. The traffic that we're talking about, people coming in and out of that driveway, is not an exorbitant amount of traffic going in and out of there. It's fire station business only. I really think the firefighters have to be given more credit for their driving experience that they do every day, day in, day out, that they don't fly out of the station with the lights and siren on and force people off the road. They do it in a methodical manner. Training, experience, it's not something that I think that they're getting enough credit for that they're professionals in doing what they're doing in this conversation. Thank you.
All right, like I said, it wasn't necessarily like up to this point. I don't really have an issue with the in and out. I threw it out more as a as a possible consideration for alleviating some concerns. The other one that I had, and I threw this out, and I think it goes a little bit towards I believe what Mr. Fratalia and Mr. Ryder would hit on, and basically it was a condition that I was suggesting that is along the lines of the following. The town would continue to make reasonable efforts to inquire about the acquisition of the adjacent parcel. Actually, I had parcel, but now that we're talking about the Bank of America parcel, I would change it to parcels. For the purpose of increasing access, visibility, and or other beneficial uses associated with the center fire station in the event availability, fiscal resources, and needs make acquisition in the best interest of the town of Pittsburgh. Now, by putting that in as a potential condition in the permit, I know it's important that we need to understand and make note of the fact that at present, those things are not an option, getting those properties. I understand that. And this isn't saying that you have to. It's really just saying that it's not something that the town will stop at least paying attention to. And in the event that, the stars sort of align, that it was contemplated that the addition of those properties to the property we're looking at right now would be beneficial and would possibly provide alleviation for some of the concerns that were brought up during the review of the project as it stands, whether it's for the access in and out, whether it's for visibility, whether it's for any host of reasons. And depending on which property you might get your hands on, how many other things that might allow, I have no idea. But I throw it out there again for consideration, with the other members as to whether or not it may or may not help alleviate some of their concerns. But obviously, it's just another suggestion. I don't have anything additional to add at this point. Well, I'll just see if any of the members have any comments on anything any of the other members either mentioned so far or the stuff I just mentioned. Mr. Fowler? Mr. Fowler, you there?
He's still muted, Stephen.
Oh, Bob, I think you're still on mute. There you go. We got you now. You have any additional comments at this point? Okay.
I'm all set.
All right, Mr. Fratalia?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple before I close for the night. I mentioned in an email to all of my board members that I wasn't happy with this presentation in the format that we have to use. And I don't think the residents of Tewksbury are given the best opportunity to voice their opinion and their views regarding the firehouse. I even have got an email tonight saying tonight's discussions and comments are heard sporadically in and out. That's not the ideal setup. I know this is not the ideal setup as well, but again, I don't think anything is that important or that can't wait until we have a better opportunity to let the residents of town and everybody else involved in this process get a full understanding of everybody's comments, because it's not coming through that way. So, and that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Ryder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think you touched on, what I talked about, the other buildings and the financial aspects of it. Those are my concerns. I did want to, while I'm speaking, the design team was able to do a rendering of the sign. Obviously, we may want to see something a little bit, I'd say maybe some granite posts or something that a little more decorative than that, where it is on Main Street. I think something can be done a little differently there. But I think we can address that as we move forward with this. But thank you for putting that together. I appreciate that was one of my requests of the last meeting. I guess my next question for Mr. Montori. Speaking of what Mr. Fratalia just stated, if this was pushed out a month, we don't know where we're going to be in a month, and obviously with some connection issues, and to give the board a little bit more time to sit down and think about some of these ideas that myself and my other colleagues come up with. If we push this out, obviously in light of the climate out there with construction, I don't know. I've seen some of my projects being bid out have been delayed. Maybe you can speak to this, or one of the designers. I've seen this, that there's a thought that construction costs may come down. I know that's a crystal ball that we don't have. What's the big concern of pushing this out a month? And hopefully we could have another meeting where we could have people come in, and if we're past that, just your thoughts on that.
Well, thanks, Eric. That's a good question. So from our standpoint, it just pushes the bid date out further. And when it comes to public building projects, there is just certain times of the year to bid them that are better, as you know. The contractor wants to get the project started, get as much done as he can, and get in the ground. So when he hits the winter, maybe he's in closed conditions. So it's just timing of a building project. If this was a water project or a road project or a sewer project, it'd be much different.
Yep.
But so that's one of the reasons. You like to do these projects sometime around no later than May, if not pushed out till late fall or over the winter. I don't know I can't tell what the bidding climate's going to be. I mean, I can't tell what's going to be in May. It could be bad in May. It could be good in May.
Right.
None of us know what's going to happen with this economy. The other thing is, I don't know how much longer we're going to continue like this. It could be a month like this.
Yep.
I wish I could, to Mr. Fatalia's point, I know it's not ideal, but we're at least doing this a few more weeks and maybe longer. I mean, things may open up, but the size crowds that gather still may be limited. So if I had, none of us, I just don't know.
Okay.
So I just,
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Just one other thing to that point. I think I'm hesitant for us to do anything if using that as the only reason, meaning, we're not able to meet in the town hall as a basis for it, for the following reason. No hearing is any different than any other hearing. At least it shouldn't be in terms of the way we handle them. So we either are or are not, okay with this format as a way to conduct our hearings, go through each petition, whether it's for a firehouse or fire hydrant.
Yep.
I don't know that we should be picking and choosing when we think a hearing is important, or designating something so important in a way that we need to be physically present versus any other hearing. Otherwise, we have to say that, I think, about all the hearings. So we're either willing to go forward with this, which, as Mr. Montori pointed out, we have absolutely no idea how long. It's either means putting off all our work for, a potentially very long period of time.
Yep.
Or using the option that's available and that is allowed, under the state's laws as they are now, to go forward. So if we want to continue it because we want to get more information, if we want to continue it because, for those kind of reasons, like any other, I feel that's solid reasoning. I just don't want to base it solely on putting this off indefinitely, waiting around for a time at which this hearing could be held in front of people as opposed to any other hearing. That's my only concern with that.
No, that's valid. I appreciate that. That was part, the first question was for Mr. Montori, just trying to get an idea if we pushed it out a month, what the designers thought there would be a potential chance of delay in the project with construction, but also to what Mr. Fratalia raised concern about. So I was trying to put those two components together, and absolutely, I think as you're aware, and I think even anyone that's watching, we have had only a few people come into the meeting on this. So it hasn't been like some of our other more controversial projects that has brought in a large crowd to this. I will speak to one, as you stated, I received a call this weekend, and I asked them if I could, tell them who it was, and they asked me that I wouldn't, but they did bring up a couple of good points. And they did bring up that, this was voted on, the location was voted on by the residents. And I understand that. And my speaking with them, and he questioned whether the residents knew all the information when they voted on this. And, during the presentations and many presentations when this went to town meeting, I think it was presented for that location. I think it was presented well for those who wanted to have the information. And there's always going to be someone that, why do we do this way? Why do we do it that way? But, we all, our expertises, and, we sit on these boards to try and make the best decisions for the town. And I think we're all trying to do that. And I commend everyone that has a role in this, because it's not an easy role. From the administration to us board members to the design team, we're all trying to, make sure everything is done right. And I appreciate everything that everyone's doing. Thank you.
All right, so with that, we've gone around twice, so I'll open it up to the public if we have anyone on the line who is called in on this.
We have no calls, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. I'll give it a few extra seconds just for that delay time to make sure that we don't have anybody that calls in after that 10-second delay. If we don't have anybody at this point, I will bring it back to the board and ask the board what the board's feelings are at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to close and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries to close. And with that, we have a motion on the site plan special permit and special permit as submitted.
I guess, I'll make the motion. I will make the motion to approve, providing the laundry list, and I believe Dawn has all those lists. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you need to list out all of those components right now as part of what was submitted.
We have, to be honest, I don't think I have that sheet with all the conditions.
Okay.
If we are putting in the conditions, we'd have to do the waiver first anyway, so I guess. we do
Okay.
the Waiver first. So
Okay.
You want to make a motion on the waiver?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver.
All right, and the waiver is for the land disturbance permit.
Correct, section 19.041 of chapter 19.
All right, so we have a motion made to grant the land disturbance waiver. We have a second?
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those
Mr.
opposed?
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
you need to do a roll call vote.
I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking on the waiver. I was thinking on the, that's fine. I'll do it. Mr. Fowler,
Aye.
Mr. Vitalia,
Aye.
Ryder,
Yes,
and the chair votes aye as well. So motion carries unanimously, so the waiver is granted. Now back to the site plan special permit and special permit. What I think we'll do, and this is what, if we're gonna go through the way, the conditions, what I'll do is I think Anna has them. So I may ask Anna if she would please read those conditions. But before she does so, I'd just like to ask a question. In reviewing those waivers, that last waiver that was, I do have it here, I'm sorry. The last waiver, which is listed as number 10. I believe this went out to the applicant and the language was struck and some language was added. I'm just looking for some clarification because I think this pertains to one of the conditions I was asking about before, which is this would be when you're coming down to the, to in front of the church. Currently it has on East Street, you currently have a stop sign. Now I had suggested, in addition to the stop sign, that there'd be a light that when the fire engines are coming out would also go red as a stop for that intersection where you're coming on from East Street. So in addition to the stop sign. If I read this correctly, or maybe I'm wrong, but is this actually talking about the redesign of that entire island being requested?
I think maybe this may be for Lance. I think that's.
Because I mean, I don't know the other members, but is that how you're reading it? That they're saying that they'll ask to have that whole section redesigned and then see what happens? Because that doesn't really address what I was talking about, which is fine. And I know we could try and do this, but I know that's kind of a down the road thing. That's not likely to happen in conjunction with the fire station going in. And it's fine that it be included, that we try to do it, because I think it would be ideal if we did. But I just want to be clear on what I'm reading. And if that's what it says, I'm also going to ask that we have an answer on that, adding that stoplight. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject something here, please?
Mr. Patalia.
I thought we were going to do a draft of these things before we made any final presentations or decisions on these. Wasn't that part of that?
That's what these are. These were for the draft. They went out to the petitioner. There isn't anything else other than the conditions that would go into the draft that's missing. So if you have additional conditions, that's fine. We can add them now. This is really just meant as a general blueprint, so everybody kind of is on the same page. So as I look at this, my understanding would be that the petitioners are fine with all the conditions that were originally mentioned, with the exception of some added language in number 8, and we'll get to that if we can go through it. And this change in language in 10. I'm just looking for some clarification on what 10 says, because they're the ones who added the language.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Lance Hill from Parkcorp.
Thank you.
So that intersection is obviously owned by a Mass DOT. So their review and approval would be, the installation of said light would be up to their review and approval. As the traffic is generated right now, I'm not sure that it meets the warrants to install that signal. So in that direction, there's not a lot of vehicles coming out of that East Street leg. I understand that the planning board has what they consider a safety issue with that installation, and that's what we're proposing. To have that discussion with Mass DOT on whether or not a signal at that location would meet the warrants to install.
Okay, so my reading of this is then that you are looking for, or what you'd be requesting would be the potential of redesigning that whole section, correct?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
I know that the town has some thought process or some thoughts on the town engineer has some thoughts on what that intersection wants to look like overall, inclusive of that East Street.
So then what I would say is, what I would ask then is that included in the requests, at least that we give to Mass DOT regarding all the lighting, that we do include the request at least that, that lighting for that, where you're coming onto Main Street there at off of East Street, be included in the request. If DOT turns it down, not a whole lot we can do about it anyways. Maybe it turns out to be belts and suspenders anyway, in the end, but I'd like it to be included. And I'm fine with the request for a redesign. I think that section could use it. But I obviously, I know that's a bigger ask and a much bigger project in and of itself. It won't be, I doubt it would be approved in conjunction with the fire station approvals for the lighting. So I just want to make sure that we're splitting those two things up, and we're still asking for the light. They turn it down, that's fine. But I want to make sure that we're asking for that, and you can ask for the redesign of that island and, how East Street, accesses Main Street. That's fine. So is that okay? Is that amenable to the petitioner?
Mr. Chairman, that's fine.
Okay, so then my understanding would be that when we talk about the Mass DOT lights and, requests for the lights in the places we've discussed, that will now include the one coming off of East Street, and then number 10 would stay as it's written. That accurate?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would submit that item number 7 on here
Yes.
is what you're referring to. The final language on that is such as signal plans at the Main Street Pleasant Street intersection, and then add the language for with the request for a signal at the East Street intersection with Main Street as well.
Okay. And just so it's in the record, that request is simply for a stopping light for when emergency vehicles are coming out. Otherwise, it's just the stop sign as usual. I'm not looking for, red, yellow, green. All right? We're just so that's on the record so everybody understands what was asked. All right. So I guess Anna is off the hook because I have the list here. So it looks like it's going to fall to me. So did the members find in their packet this list of conditions?
Yes.
And I will presume that there is no way for this to show up on screen. Is that right?
Anna, do you have it electronically? You can put it up if you can share the screen.
Thanks, Bob.
I could try.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ability
you know what?
to share the
It's
screen.
only because there's several of them. I was hoping to sort of slow the process, but you know what?
I can share the screen.
Okay, Steve,
Okay.
do you have that? Oh,
Okay, so if you can put that up, that would be ideal.
yes.
Then we could talk about them without me having to read them all.
And I think that gives the ability for the residents at home to see it.
Exactly. Because even if I read them, it's going to be hard to keep track of all of them.
Absolutely.
All right, so now that they appear on the screen, I will ask the members, are there any of these conditions as they're listed here that anyone wishes to add to, subtract from? Just the ones that are here. We can ask in a second about any we want to add, but I just want to see if we're okay with the 10 that are listed on this sheet. Mr. Fowler?
He may still be muted, Steve.
All right, we'll go in reverse. We'll take Mr. Ryder first.
I believe everything on this list is addressed. I think one thing I would like is once the final lighting design has been completed, that they provide the board with a copy of that.
Okay. Any others on the 10 that are there?
No, I
Okay.
believe those have all been addressed, Mr. Johnson.
All right. Mr. Fratelli.
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Fowler, you have anything on these 10?
No, but I'm reading number 10. I'm not sure if someone would understand that it's only a stoplight for the apparatus. It's actually a light that comes on at the same time that the light in front of the station driveway comes on, correct?
Actually, I think that's now, that request is being folded into number 7. Number 10 is actually their request for changing that whole island where East Street meets Main Street has been discussed in other projects where we've talked about potentially redesigning that whole thing. This is basically saying that they're going to try and do that. Obviously, that's a bigger deal, but it's being folded into this. But the one about the lights actually going to go in number 7 now.
That's
I don't
correct.
see how that,
Go ahead,
Well-
Fowler.
you'll have to explain that to me. All it talks about is a curb cut. And it says
In number 10?
Main Street and Pleasant Street.
All right, well, I'll let
It says Main-
Lance, I'll let you comment if you want.
Yeah, so we talked about number 4 here is a flashing yellow signal on Main Street shall be installed at the site driveway. Mr. Fowler, is that the one that you were concerned about?
Yes. How was that spelled out?
Well, the flashing yellow signal would be installed at the site driveway as per the request, and the as part of the curb cut permit to Mass DOT, those are going to be folded in together at the same time, so that the final disposition of the signal would be subject to the Mass DOT.
It still doesn't explain it to me. The signal, when you say the signal, which signal? The one at the driveway or the one at East Street?
This is a flashing yellow signal on Main Street shall be installed at the site driveway.
I understand that. Where is the light, whether it's flashing yellow or whatever it is, where is that described on the conditions for East Street?
Number 10.
I said that, and you said no.
No, it's not 10. It's 7.
So, if I may, I'll just number 4 I'm getting some feedback here, but number 4 talks about the flashing yellow signal on Main Street at the site driveway. Number 7 talks about the curb cut permit to Mass DOT, such as the plans at this Main Street / Pleasant Street intersection, and the chairman just asked to include with the installation of a light at East Street as well. So that would be it folded into number 7 there, Mr. Fowler. Does that address your concern?
Lance, if I may, this is Eric. I think the way I read this, as you just explained this, is part of for somebody that may not know, is part of the curb cut permit. That is part of the signalization for the Opticom system at the exit and entrance of the fire station, the driveway entering on Main Street. I think, can you explain that a little more in detail, that the permit is part of this condition, is part that there is stoplights on Route 38 Main Street at the exit of the fire station driveway, X number of yards, both east and west, that will work with the Opticom system to stop traffic. I know that's part of the permit of the curb cut permit with Mass DOT, but in the draft condition, it's not explained for somebody that doesn't know that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, as Mr. Ryder explained, when we file the curb cut permit to Mass DOT, we'll be submitting signal plans as well. The signal plans will be speaking specifically to the end of the driveway for the site onto Main Street. The plan currently is to put a flashing yellow light on Main Street, and which will be activated by the Opticom system to stop traffic on Main Street, so that fire trucks can exit the driveway. Currently, the plan is to tie that signal into the proposed signal at the driveway to the existing signal at the Main and Pleasant Street intersection. What will be submitted to the Mass DOT and subject to their approval is how the final operation of those two signals interact with each other and how that they're going to operate with the Opticom system and with the traffic that's flowing through the area. What has been requested of the design team is to install or to evaluate the installation of an additional signal on East Street where it interacts with Main Street. And I think that's the question that Mr. Fowler has right now. Where is that spelled out in these draft conditions? And the response to that is the chairman has requested that the installation of that, or the evaluation of the installation of the signal on East Street at Main Street would be included in number 7 here.
Okay.
I believe that clears that up. Is there still a question there that I can help answer?
Nope, I know how an Opticom system works, believe me.
Sure.
But I just want to make sure that we haven't forgotten East Street. Because we brought this up 2 meetings ago. So we still haven't seen it spelled out anywhere. So I just want to make sure that that's spelled out as part of the condition.
Mr. Chairman, this is Eric again. That is part of the reason I requested the approved lighting design plan to the board for this. So everyone is aware of what lights will work in conjunction with the Opticom system as part of this project.
All right, very good. So, and just
won't have that plan. We won't have that plan, obviously, until that is approved at final design by Mass DOT, but it's just something we can have in the documentation for future.
Very good, thank you. And just for clarification, that's what the petitioners did agree to adding East Street into the language in number 7. So it would come after Pleasant Street in that last line. So it would be Main Street / Pleasant Street / East Street. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so other than that, you're all set, Mr. Fowler, other than that? Is that correct?
I was all set a long time ago.
So I think, I'm sorry, I lost my track. Did I miss anybody on these, on the conditions? Anybody have any other on these ones that are already in existence? Are we good otherwise?
Yes.
All right. So then the only other, and I'll go back around. Does anybody have any additional conditions that they wish to have added to this that are not on here at this time? I'll start Mr. Ryder.
I don't necessarily know if it warrants being a part of the condition, as I mentioned, as followed up with, that the town continue to work towards the acquisition of surrounding properties if they do come available.
So I am gonna ask that when I mentioned before.
Okay.
To be added at the end. So I think that'll cover both of us. If
Perfect.
That's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Other than that, I think everyone's hit on everything. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Mr. Fattalia, any other additional conditions you wish to have added?
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Fowler, any additional conditions?
Nope, all set.
All right. So then I'll ask the petitioners, the condition that I read off earlier regarding the continued at least monitoring and reasonable efforts to see about the acquisition of either of those adjacent parcels. Do you have any problem with adding that as a condition the way I described it?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so if I'll run through that language. Obviously, it's not going to appear on the screen. I'm going to read it off so it gets into the record. And if anybody thinks that what I read is wrong, please tell me. But the language that I had was the town will continue to make reasonable efforts to inquire about the acquisition of the adjacent parcels for the purpose of increasing access, visibility, and/or other beneficial uses associated with the center fire station in the event availability, fiscal resources, and needs make acquisition in the best interest of the town of Tewksbury. Does anybody have any issue with that language?
No, Mr. Chairman. All set.
All right. Hearing none. So that will become number 11. So the 11 that's on here was actually the waiver request, so that's not a condition. And we'll scratch that out, and the language I just read off will become the 11th condition.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Anna McGinty. Just how the decision is written, we put the waivers in with the conditions, so it needs to stay there as the waiver as number 11. I can add that in as
Make that number 12? All right, that's fine. We'll do it that way. That's fine. So we'll just make it number 12. All right, then with that, we'll return to what the pleasure of the board is as to the site plan special permit and special permit as submitted with the conditions listed just now. We have a motion?
I believe I did make the motion originally, Mr. Chairman.
That's right. We have to the waivers,
I
but
just
that's
wanted to clarify on all the conditions first, though. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so we have the motion made. We have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. We'll go through the polling again. We'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Aye.
Mr. Fachalia,
Aye.
Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well. So we have the approval of the center fire station with the conditions as submitted. I thank everybody. Honestly, this was, this was a lot of work, and everybody did a really good job of trying to work our way to yes. I acknowledge that not everybody's happy, but usually that's usually a good indication of a good agreement when not everybody is happy. Somebody got something and somebody didn't, but I think that everybody should be commended for the effort put forth to try and resolve this and in the best interest of the town. And I hope we did that. I hope everyone thinks that we did that. And thank everybody for their efforts.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to thank you and the board members for your vote tonight. We will make you proud with this project, and I appreciate all the feedback. I think this process has made it an even better project, and thank you very much.
All right, we appreciate it. Give it 1 second while we have all the folks that we have for the fire station to drop off. And then we're going to move on to agenda item E, which is 135 Pleasant Street. This is the elementary school location, continued from our March 30th meeting. Do we have anyone here for the elementary school?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Peter Collins from CBRE here, representing the project's building committee. Also on the call this evening are two design team members, Bill Beatrice from Plansburg Architects and Jared Genalucci from Niche Engineering, the civil engineer designer.
All right, then I would ask that your additional folks stay on mute, because I assume we're going to start with you, and then we'll just have people pop on as we need them, just so it cuts down on the background noise. That's all right?
That's fine, thank you.
All right, so with that, I will turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members. Again, Peter Collins, CBRE, the owner, project manager on the project. Nothing really new to report this evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. We, the project team, have continued to work with the town engineers and the town engineer's peer review consultant on working out some design details for the stormwater design for the project. We've had several meetings over the past period of time since we last met with the planning board. We are continuing to exchange information with each other between town engineers, new consultant, and the design engineering team. We have some more information we will be exchanging over the next 5 to 10 days, and we are hopeful to have most of those issues resolved and be able to come back to the planning board at the next planning board meeting on April 27th.
Okay. So I guess, I know we left this on the 30th, I think, with the question of, what is the time frame that you're working with in order for us to try to come to a final resolution here so that you stay on your timetable? Or has all of this thrown your timetable out the window? I have no idea.
No, certainly we certainly have a timetable we want to accomplish, but we're not going to rush the project. We want to make sure the design is complete, the design is acceptable to the town, and all the issues or the questions and the concerns have been met and are acceptable to the town engineer, the abutters for the project, the peer review, and the design consultant. We just have some details we want to make sure that are fully vetted and fully understood by all parties. And yes, it's taking maybe a little bit longer than we anticipated. However, we feel it's important that every detail is understood and agreed to.
All Okay, let me take it around the room. We'll start with Mr. Fattaia.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm all set for, Peter, thank you for the continued job you do on this effort, and it's very tough times as far as everybody else concerned, but thanks for continuing the fight.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fowler.
Peter, as always, you do a fantastic job. You should be proud. And I'm all set.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes, thank you, Peter. As always, doing a great job. I did want to bring up one thing. As we discussed at our elementary school building committee meeting the other day, the potential of some activities going on the site. Peter, do you want to talk about some of those things prior?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ryder. I'm still in contact with the Community Development Office to make sure some of these items that we're contemplating starting while permitting is underway is acceptable. Another, as the chairman mentioned, what is our timeline? Yes, we have a timeline. Yes, we would like to get underway. And there are some activities we are contemplating starting before permitting is 100% finalized. Those are relatively minor issues, but nonetheless, we want to make sure we all are on the same page and we have a clear understanding of what is deemed acceptable. So we're still in conversations with the Community Development Office and other town agencies as well. So at this time, nothing really to request or discuss any further because it's still kind of in the early stages.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate it, Peter. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well, Mr. Ryder.
All right, so for me, I just want to be sure that we're, that we're keeping up with the timeline in a way that keeps things on track, and that, when it comes to getting the decisions you need from us, that, we have as many things, as many T's crossed and I's dotted as possible as we're going along, so we don't delay this in any way that's unnecessary. I believe, I might be mistaken, and if any of the members feel that I am, please correct me, but I believe through our last few meetings that for what was presented to us, we were fine with what was presented to us. We knew there were some things that needed to still be squared away with the town engineer and et cetera, but none of the members have anything still outstanding of the things we've discussed. Is that correct?
That is, yes, Mr. Chairman, that is my understanding as well. I believe we've addressed many questions from the board itself and the members of the board. It's a matter of working out some of the design details, the civil engineering aspect of it between the town engineer, the peer review, and the designer themselves. And by no means is the planning board in any way delaying the process here. We certainly respect and appreciate the effort the board has brought forth, and they asked questions timely, and we've hopefully answered most of them. It's just a matter of the design team, the OPM, and the town engineer, and the peer review consultant all agreeing on what will be acceptable, and all the details will be in place. So, the ball is certainly in our court, not the planning board.
All right, so let me just say this then. Whatever you can do to make sure as much information gets to us as early as possible, with the situation, with the meetings, the way we're doing them, getting information last minute makes it really hard. The earlier we get it, the more leeway we might be able to have in terms of rendering a decision, however we come down quicker than, last minute information. So whatever you can do, get what you need to get in as quick as possible and get those results to us as quickly as possible, I think will help the process, reach its endpoint as quickly as possible and keep things as on schedule as possible.
So certainly we will certainly do that as you suggested. Time is of the essence. We acknowledge that, and we will certainly do that and get all the information to the board for proper review and discussions.
All right, very good. So obviously it's a public hearing, so I'll open it up. Do we have anyone on the line wishing to discuss the elementary school?
No one yet, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we will wait out our 10-second delay time to see if anybody phones in. Wants to discuss this. As I recall, in our last few meetings on this, we didn't really have anybody. One outstanding issue that I know they're still looking for an answer on, but other than that, I think I've delayed long enough to make sure nobody called in. So with that, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to continue, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so the meeting on the 27th,
Second.
continue this to 7:15. So we have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, board members.
All right, moving on to agenda item F, which is 2221 Main Street, signed special permit. We continued this without opening it from our last meeting under the rules as passed by the Commonwealth. So can I have a motion to waive the public reading on this, this hearing?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. With that, do we have anybody for this matter?
Yes, my name is Peter March, New Hampshire Signs, 66 Gold Ledge Avenue, Auburn, New Hampshire.
All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we're applying for a special permit to rebuild the main ID sign at the Hafner Station at 2221 Main Street, Tewkesbury, and we wish to add LED price changes. Hafner's Energy North is conducting an image change on all their sites and wants to start the process with this site. The site is zoned commercial. In terms of section 5230D, we're applying for a special permit from the planning board. We have already gained permits to rebuild the canopy, the gas station canopy, and we're reducing the signage significantly on the gas station canopy. So what we intend to do is to remove, rebuild, and replace the current sign. We've made the following changes vis-a-vis the old sign. The non-graphic elements of the sign will not light. In other words, if you have the drawing in front of you, that drawing, the word Hafner's, the donkey will light, but not the white background. The regular diesel and heating oil text or copy only will light, and obviously the prices will light. And then on the car wash and the swoosh alone will light. So the light output compared to the existing sign will reduce substantially. We're asking for LED price changes. LED price changes are a relatively new technology that is replacing the old technology of manual reader boards. They're designed to display fuel prices alone, and they'll change only when an end user actively changes the sign. They don't have the ability to display information other than number digits. And we're asking that they be allowed to reflect cash credit, or in this case, wash, no wash, which would be a discount on the price to the end user. LED price changes in general make it easier for the public to read gas prices and improve traffic safety. The older signs with the manual prices are difficult to change in windy or icy conditions, and the track system is prone to failure. The letters fall out from time to time. These signs link into a network that allows the owner to change prices on the dispensers, at the till, and on the sign itself simultaneously and remotely. So this business only fulfills some of the criteria for the special permit required for LED price changes. Firstly, the business utilizing the electronic message board is located on a site of over 10 acres. In this particular case, the property is 2.25 acres, not 10 acres. To the second point, the buildings and public entrances to the businesses are located at least 125 feet from the street. The gas station canopy is located about 20 feet from this road. There will be no interference with traffic patterns, traffic lights, or public safety. The site is a gas station with a price sign. It remains so, and this sign will contribute to better readability and thus traffic safety. As I said, we intend to remove the sign, rebuild it, and replace it on the same pole, in fact, in the same location. The fourth part of the special permit is that the dimensions of the message board should not be over 41 inches high and 63 inches wide. The aggregate of all the displays on this sign is 18.2 square feet, so it's substantially under that required dimension. Electronic message board should not be allowed in the town center overlay district. The sign is not in the overlay district, it's in the commercial district. There should be no scrolling, flashing, or movement of messages or other displays. These signs do not scroll, flash, or move. Price changes are immediate and do not have any form of transition. Point 7, the electronic message board letters will be amber colored only with a black background. The digits we propose are in fact amber with a black background. Any message must be displayed for a set period of time as determined by the planning board. These price units are being categorized with other LED message centers. They're considerably less intrusive and more than mere advertising. And when we talk about message centers, I'm talking about the TV screen type message center. As I stated earlier, they offer benefits such as being able to change price essentially and offer other safety benefits. We're requesting a 5-second minimum. The name of the site and the price of the gas are two critical elements to the success of a station. Signage is important, extremely important to these businesses. In this particular case, the entire station is being renovated. Canopy, forecourt, lighting, and I think you'll appreciate that it's a relatively drab, under-maintained site. It'll become a showpiece in the Hafner's Energy North group as a result of this proposed upgrade. And really what we're asking for the town to do is to recognize the utility and safety of LED prices, as well as a switch in consumer tastes, i.e. the cash credit option, and allow this owner to react to them by offering dual pricing in the manner that he offers single pricing currently. I assume it's a bit difficult talking to a phone. I assume everyone heard that.
Yep, no, we got it. I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have anything additional.
That's it.
All right, very good. I'll open up to the members. We'll start with Mr. Ryder.
Thank you. One question for the petitioner. The sign location is in the exact same location as currently sits, sir?
Yes, sir. We're going to be using the same pole. So yeah, it'll be the same
Okay.
location.
And that is a concrete or stone base that surrounds?
It currently isn't, but we intend to build a stone base around the sign. So the sign itself is on a pole with a couple of aged bollards around it. We intend to build a nice stone base around it.
Okay. And I see you already have the address on there, which is great.
Yes.
Okay, and then you did answer my questions of which components of the sign will be illuminated. So
yes,
it will be much softer, so to speak, than the current fluorescent white backing that's current in this sign.
Yes, currently the sign is 96 inches high by 168 wide, so it's the same size because it's the same sign that we'll be using, and the whole of the existing sign lights. On the new sign, the white component does not light. The word car wash, Hafner's, the donkey, and the grade name themselves are the part that light, obviously in addition to the price changes.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Fowler.
Mr. Mutch, this is a very small item. Because the street number is not going to be lit up. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay. Because the street number is not going to be lit up, can that be luminescent, the numbers?
Yeah, certainly I can make those reflective.
Okay, fine. I guess that's the right word. Thank you. I'm all set.
Yep.
All right, very good. Mr. Fratalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You answered one of my questions as far as the larger sign saying Hafner's Car Wash. So the whole exterior of the branding will be changed?
Yes, sir. The canopy is going to be stripped, and there's, as you may know, there's giant signs on the existing canopy. The current area of the canopy is something like 390 square feet of signage, and the new brand is, or the new look is going to bring that down to 100 square feet. So we're cutting the signage on the actual canopy by a third, something like a third, or actually more than a third.
Is there any way you can show us a rendering of what that is going to look like?
That is, I don't have it with me. That's been permitted and has been approved already.
By who?
By the town. We split the permitting up between the ID sign, which is what we're talking about now, and the actual canopy, which was permitted and is legally permitted. It was permitted some months ago.
By the building department?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I wasn't
Yes,
aware of
Vinny.
that. Pardon me, Don?
Yes, it was permitted.
Okay. And all approved?
Yep.
Good. Okay. All right. One other question I had was, so same height, I guess the base is gonna be a little bit wider, correct? That's gonna be.
The face is the same. It has those two sort of moldings on the side, but otherwise the face is going to be the same size. It has the two red moldings on the side. They're just a sort of an architectural detail. They don't light or anything like that. They're just
Actually, I'm questioning about the base of the sign. It'll be a little bit larger than what you have now because you're adding stonework to the whole base?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right, all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, so my only question really is a clarification. So in looking at the rendering, the width of the sign, well, you referred to the pole that exists now, but the rendering, obviously, that section between the base and the sign itself looks a lot thicker. Is the pole going to be encased?
Yes. So
Okay.
On the pole cover, the one that has the letters 2221 on it, it's going to be basically 30 inches wide.
Okay.
So that's a metal, non-illuminated structure that it hides that very unattractive pole. The pole is a very unattractive.
That's what I was getting at.
We want to move away from that, really.
All right, perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. So otherwise, with that, I have no other questions or issues with the sign. I'll only say that I think that this is a vast improvement over what's there, and I would think would make hopefully just about everybody happy, because I think this is a much nicer, cleaner sign than what's there now. So very happy with that. With that, I'll open it up to the audience. Is there any calls on this matter?
No calls, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so while we delay just to see if anybody calls in, let me just go over my understanding for the waivers that we need to issue. So what I have here is section 5231D1, 2, and 4 that would need to be waived for this permit. Am I correct?
5232, sir.
Yes, 5232D1, D2, and D4.
Okay.
All right, and then so that would be the waiver. So I think I've delayed long enough to make sure. And then on the conditions, when we get to those, the conditions would be the 5-second request for changing between the cash and credit pricing or the no wash pricing. Those changes would be 5 seconds at the request of the petitioner. Is that correct?
Yes, and then the other condition was the reflective numbers.
address, yes. So those were the two, those will be the two conditions when we get to that point. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So with that, having no public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I had one item that I wanted to bring up.
Oh, okay.
I neglected to do so earlier. I will ask the petitioner, is within the stone base, is there going to be dirt in there? Or is it going to be a cement cap?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'll ask you this, if it is dirt, you could have a cap around it. Could you put some short evergreens to kind of soften the base a little bit? That's normally what we do with the base around the sign.
I don't see why that would be a problem.
Okay, that'd be great.
So Mr. Fowler, we'll make that a condition that if it is not capped, that some small evergreens will be planted. And
Correct.
if it's capped, that's okay, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, good enough. So those will be the three.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
just to be clear, is that evergreen shrubs?
Mr. Fowler? I'm going to say yes, because we want something small, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So
Great.
yeah,
evergreens.
probably no more than 2 feet, 3 feet tall.
Thank you. I'll add that to the condition.
All right, very good.
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, so with that, I'll bring it back one more time to what is the pleasure of the board at this time?
I'll
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, close the public hearing.
All right, I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second,
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
All
Aye.
those opposed? Hearing none, passed unanimous. So with that, I'll go to the waivers. So the waivers are, as we said before, section 5231 D1, D2, and D4. Do I have a motion on the waivers?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the waivers as discussed.
All right, so the motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We'll do that in roll call. So Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Mr. Fowler,
aye,
Mr. Fratalia.
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. So the waivers are passed unanimously. As to the signed special permit as submitted, do we have a motion made with the conditions as discussed of the 5 seconds between change, the reflective address numbers be included, and if the stone base is not capped, the addition of a couple of 2 to 3 foot shrubs in the stone basin. We have a
so
motion.
moved.
I have a motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Ryder,
Aye.
Mr. Fowler,
Aye,
Mr. Fratalia,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well. So it's unanimous. We have approval of the site plan. I'm sorry, signed special permit. All right, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Bye then.
Moving on to agenda item G, which is 495 Woodward Street. This was also one that we continued but did not open. So do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
The motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
can
opposed?
anybody hear me?
Yes.
Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I've been trying to get you for about 2 minutes.
Oh, nope, that's the first time I heard you. It was just now.
Okay, I got a text message that the screen kept going black on the TVs.
Okay.
That was about 5-10 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking at it. I haven't brought my eyes up very often. I've got the TV on above me. We're on it right now. So
Yep.
just to give everybody a heads up that, if we did drop out at this point, I don't know, if that was about 5 minutes ago, then it would have been agenda item F, which is 221 Main Street. It was a signed special permit, which the board just approved with a couple of conditions and a few waivers. And we are now moving on to agenda item G, which is 495 Woburn Street. We've just had a motion made and seconded to waive the public reading. We took, I'm sorry, Mr. Fowler, did you vote aye as well, waiving the public reading?
Yes.
Okay, so unanimous for waiving the public reading. And with that, do we have anyone for this, for 495 Woburn Street?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. Can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. I have with me this evening Christine Hung from my office. And I have a lot of other individuals that I'll interview as we go through the process. If you will recall, back in December, we were before you for the concept plan. That was the requirement of your zoning bylaws. I'd like to put up the, at this point, Connor, if you would put up the site locus plan, which is...
Yes. For the record, this is Connor Nagel, VHB. I have shared the plan. Let me know if you can see that.
That's good. I can see it. Thank you. This property is located off of Woburn Street and Discovery Way, which is a private approved subdivision way which comes off of Woburn Street. The property is located on the other side of the MBTA commuter rail station, so it is identified as 495 rear and 40 Discovery Way. It is in the back portion of the site. It is unique in the sense that it consists of, the property is located in 3 jurisdictions: the city of Lowell, the town of Billerica, and the town of Tewksbury. The development is going to occur solely in the town of Billerica and the town of Tewksbury. And of the total site of 119 acres approximately, 45 of the acres in Tewksbury will be developed, and 34 acres in Billerica. For those that are familiar with the site, it was the former Raytheon site. The site is contemplated to be, the existing structures will be demolished, and a new state-of-the-art facility for processing and logistics for Home Depot for the servicing of the e-commerce clients will be developed. This is a unique opportunity to turn an otherwise unproductive piece of property into a very tax productive piece of real estate. It is somewhat unique, as I indicated in the beginning, because there really are no abutters. If we could just go back for a second to the slide number 1. Anna?
Yep, it's on there.
No, the first one.
Yep, that's the first one.
No, the site locus site.
Yeah, is that not showing? That's what's on my
No.
screen.
I have the site plan. Oop, there we go. To the rear of the site, we have the Concord River. I guess it would be to the west, 495, as I indicated, the MBTA rail line with a significant buffer before you hit Woburn Street, and then to the southeast, Baker Commodities. The unique process, the attributes of this site have made this project quite complex, where you try to wed the jurisdictional aspects of the bylaws of 2 communities together to achieve and comply with the regulations of both to develop a building of approximately 775,000 square feet, which essentially half of the building will be in Tewksbury and half will be in Billerica. So you're forced to comply with 2 sets of zoning bylaws and other applicable regulations. Just as an aside, I will compliment both communities on their professionalism and working together over the last 8 or 9 months. We've had numerous meetings with the staffs individually and collaboratively, and the professionalism has been nothing but outstanding. So this is a culmination of a long process addressing many complex issues to achieve the policy objectives of both towns that are embodied in their bylaws and regulations. That being said, however, because there's never a clean and exact fit, oftentimes we've had to ask for relief, and we will be doing so, as the application indicates, we will need some relief through your special permit process on the nature of waivers or special permits for relief. The waivers are in the nature of parking and loading requirements, some landscaping and screening requirements, bearing in mind, as I indicated a few moments ago, that we have a lot of natural and commercial buffers already existing. And then on the special permit relief, well, one of them is with respect to the building heights. Given the nature of the building or the services being provided here, we will need some slight relief on some of the heights throughout the building. The minimum coverage of the development pad, again, bearing in mind that most of the site is remaining in its natural state, but the actual development portion where we are doing the construction will need some relief. We will have a signage relief request, and on the lighting and stormwater, trying to tie the stormwater permit to the notice of intent filing with the conservation. What I'd like and ask the chairman at this time, I would ask the site consultants, site civil consultants, VHB, Connor Nagel and Jeff Black, to walk the board through the site plan from a technical standpoint, and then I will turn it over to our traffic consultants and then back to the board for questions, bearing in mind that we are responding to a number of questions that have been raised through the internal review, but would be more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have this evening.
All right, very good. So you can have your folks they can
Connor?
unmute and go ahead.
Hi, Connor Nagel at VHB, civil engineer of record for this project. Start with the existing condition here. Bob has described it. We're bound by the commuter rail on the east side, Concord River on the west, Baker Commodities to the south, and then surrounded by wetlands on the south, the west, the river, and all up on the north side, a portion in Tewksbury and on up to Lowell, where there's some 60 acres of wetlands in total. The existing building is about 445,000 square feet. The Raytheon site has a stormwater system that includes a detention basin here on the south end of it. All of the existing stormwater discharges to the Concord River. There's a significant grade change across the site, in excess of 30 feet from the east side down to the lower end being the Concord River. A small amount of floodplain right adjacent to the river, but the majority of the site is out of that. So moving on then to the development, let me just sort of center that on the screen. The access would remain the same as existing. There is a single point of access from Discovery Way from Woburn Street. We are proposing to relocate an emergency access that exists approximately here, slightly to the east. That has been in concert with Baker Commodities, who requested it be moved over there. It better suits their operation and works for the proposed facility. So the proposed facility then is a 775,000 square foot, including the mezzanine within it. It's approximately 715,000 square foot building. The building has loading docks on both the north and south sides, trailer storage to the west, and some to the south, a small amount to the north. The employee parking, for the most part, is in the along the east side in Tewksbury. There is some on the west end of the building in Billerica. As Bob mentioned, the main reason for requesting waivers is the fact that it's split into multiple municipalities, though Lowell isn't involved, just in the wetlands north. But there is a parking deficiency on the Billerica side that is made up on the Tewksbury side. an overall landscaping percentage that is above either of the town requirements, but falls short in on the Tewksbury side, falls short with the internal landscaping within the parking lot, but is overall in excess of that requirement. In Billerica, falls short on the requirement for landscaping around the building because of the loading docks. But again, the overall landscape percentage of the site is significantly above the requirement. In terms of the overall development footprint, we are pulling back the edges of the existing pavement, where you see the green hatch outside of the pavement here. That's approximately the existing pavement line. We're condensing the proposal to pull those back from the wetland resource areas. We're proposing a full stormwater design to meet state and local requirements in both jurisdictions that has gone through a review with the LSPs of record for Raytheon to maximize the infiltration while minimizing or eliminating any disruption to the ongoing remediation operations, particularly along the north, west, and southwest corners. That proposal has been submitted to Mr. Hardiman, the Tewksbury Town Engineer, and to both conservation commissions for a full review. The utilities for the site are served as the existing utilities are from Woburn Street. Some go under the rail bed and some are attached to the bridge. So our intent is to reuse the existing utility lines for the most part, so as not to require interruption of the rail bed. We are in receipt of the comments from the planning department. We are currently putting together a response to those comments, but do not see any concerns with any of those comments. So that response will follow. That's all I have in terms of presentations of the site. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, we could have the traffic engineer go through the traffic analysis and then entertain questions from the board.
I think we're better off if we do that, because I have a feeling that the traffic will be one that will get discussed a bit. So we'll probably be better to get the preliminary comments out of the way before the board members start commenting. So yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, Bob?
Okay, yes, this is Bob Michaud with MDM Transportation Consultants. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm going to give you a high-level overview of a traffic impact and access study that we've prepared for this project. It was prepared to an industry standard and in fact was subject to independent peer review by both Tewksbury and Billerica. We're still awaiting review from Billerica, but we do have the substance of comments from Vanass and Associates, and their review of the materials is documented in a letter that they've issued on February 26th of 2020. So what I'd like to do is really focus on what ultimately is the real impact of the project, which is focused principally at the driveway itself and the need for potential geometric and signal related improvements that relate to that impact. And finally, to talk a little bit about transportation demand management, a TDM program that will foster alternative travel modes to or from this particular property. So in the next slide, Connor, indicate the focal areas of the study. You'll see that the site, of course, is bounded by several municipalities, but the quarter itself, Woburn Street, consider the primary gateway as being the I-495 interchange to the north as we work toward the site, the driveway itself, and then on the Billerica side, we've got the Billerica Business Center driveway, which is among the highest driveways in the Billerica area. And finally, the Mount Pleasant Street intersection, also in Billerica. The next slide would indicate the relative projected traffic activity for this particular proposal. This is based on tenant-specific projections of activity that are based on its knowledge and experience with shift patterns for facilities like this in the United States. What's unique about this particular property and this particular tenant is that they do anticipate a shift pattern that does not coincide with the traditional travel peaks along Woburn Street. There'll be some 200 employees, roughly speaking, that are comprised of both tenant-specific employees and third-party employees, people who drive box trucks essentially from the facility for daily deliveries. Those shifts will happen to start very early in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and ending at 2:30 in the afternoon. Again, a second shift at 10 o'clock in the morning, ending at 6:30 p.m. And then you've got other daytime shifts, one beginning at noon and ending at 8:30 p.m. And finally, another one at 10 p.m. and ending at 6:30 a.m. So this particular tenant, we expect, based on its employment levels and its shift patterns, will have a very limited traffic impact during the hours that are busiest on Woburn Street. So this summary table would indicate the difference between the employee-related activity based on those tenant-provided characteristics, as well as the truck-related activity. And you'll see that during the weekday morning peak hour, that the peak inbound directional trips are just under 100. And the vast majority of those happen to be by employees working that first shift, both third-party employees as well as the Home Depot's regular employees. The outbound is very modest, principally consisting of the box trucks that would be destined to regional locations making deliveries at about 15 per hour during that same period of time. In the afternoon, again, because the shift peaks are off-peak, if you will, the amount of employee-related activity per hour that would be exiting the property would be about 30. It's one vehicle every 2 minutes. Pretty modest. The returning trucks from the earlier daytime departure will be returning during that same period of time at roughly 16 trucks over the course of an hour, about one truck every 4 minutes. Daily trips at less than 500. The next slide would indicate the basis of impact that we've used for the report, which we believe to be very conservative. And that is based on industry standard trip generation methodology applied to a generic land use category known as industrial park. We know that this is a large building, that it could potentially be used for a range of activities, not necessarily for the specific tenant. If you were using a more generic standard here, the trip standards would show about twice the level of activity that I talked about in the morning based on the actual tenant characteristics. So about just over 200 directional inbound trips based on industry standards, and conversely, the same amount of activity departing the site during a weekday evening peak hour. So a much different picture that is based on a more generic approach on looking at the property. And this, in fact, serves as the basis for what we've identified as mitigation for the property. So this would apply not only to the lower generating characteristic of the known tenant, but potentially other uses of the building over time should that tenant change. So the next slide would show a comparison between what we know has occurred at the site by Raytheon and other uses. The closest equivalent land use category we show is manufacturing at a building of just under 600,000 square feet, which generates on the order of almost 400 vehicle trips per hour. This is consistent with our understanding of Raytheon's once high employment levels at this particular site at in excess of 600 employees, and hence the parking that you see on the site today. If you were to apply the more generic industrial park standard in the second column, you'll see that the trip standards are just over 200 vehicle trips per hour and are very consistent with the third column, which is the industry standard at the expanded building size of, as Connor Nagel had pointed out, 715,000 square feet, just over 200 peak directional trips. So that provides a context. The next slide indicates on the basis of the higher trip standard, the ITE trip standard, that we anticipate about 80% or so of the vehicle activity, whether truck or employee related, to be oriented to the 495 corridor. Far less activity to the south, Billerica area, and very, very marginal activity, if any, from any of the side streets feeding Woburn Street. And while these numbers are somewhat small to look at, the storyline here is that we don't expect that the project will generate trip increases that represent more than about 1 to 2 additional vehicles per minute through the interchange in any particular location. So at 495, for instance, we've got about 90 trips an hour to or from the south, 78 to or from the north. On the Lowell side, about 50 trips per hour coming from the Lowell side. Far lower volumes on the Billerica side. If we go to the next slide, you'll see the very similar pattern, only in reverse trend. Again, using the higher industry standard trip standard. These trip increases would represent about a 6 to 8% change in overall trip activity at the interchange itself, and less than a 1% change on any other portion of Woburn Street when you get south of the property, or on any of the side streets. So how does this relate to impact? How does this relate to mitigation actions? The next slide would indicate the primary findings of the study. We know that through peer review process that the basis of what we've done our analysis on is corroborated, is agreed to as part of that review. They concur with our technical approach. They concur with our study locations. And the end result of this is that we have a tenant that has a minimal amount of trip activity because those peak hours of activity do not coincide with traditional peak periods. The tenant impact actually represents less than a 5% change at any area location, including the interchange. And in fact, using the tenant provided employee and truck activity statistics, we know that even at the interchange itself, which is in Lowell, that the trip increases reflect between a 2 and a 4% overall change in activity, not enough to actually materially change how the interchange works or functions. And certainly far less on any other roadway, including even the driveway. So there's no material impact to traffic operations from the site. It's quantifiable, absolutely. I'll point out that we do anticipate a monitoring program to ensure that the projections that the tenant has provided are in fact accurate and will serve as a basis upon which geometric and/or signal improvements could be implemented at the driveway, the primary impacted location, if necessary to support the operation. We do not expect there will be any truck-related activity on local side streets. There wouldn't be any reason for that to happen, actually. The truck activity is destined to regional locations. Any tractor trailer-related truck activity would be exclusively coming from the I-495 corridor from the north as the most convenient means and direct access to the particular site. The next slide provides a context for what we anticipate may be required at some point in occupancy of the building. Perhaps not initially, based on the actual tenant characteristics that I just described, but this is a color representation of geometric improvements at the driveway. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Discovery Way driveway approach. We're not proposing to widen that or modify it in any way other than enhancing the curb radii to ensure that they're maximized to facilitate movements into or out of the property. There will, we envision, be a slight widening of Woburn Street along the west edge or the property side of the street to accommodate a more generous, wider approach lane in both the northbound and southbound directions. That would result in a wider shoulder area. The design intent of doing that would be to better accommodate a potential future signal at the driveway should a signal be warranted. It would allow for the occasional, for instance, left turn movement into the property from the Billerica side, which we think will only be very occasional, to be bypassed by vehicles that are destined to the 495 quarter. So you'll see that there's a slightly wider shoulder area that would accommodate that occasional bypass of a queued vehicle if necessary. And likewise, on the southbound approach, making a right turn into the property would include a slightly wider shoulder area that would facilitate that right turn movement, particularly by trucks. You'll also notice in this drawing that sidewalks which currently exist along the frontage of the property would be relocated and enhanced. They'd be reconstructed and would be brought up to a current ADA standard. That also holds true on the north side of the driveway to the extent that sidewalk is constructible within the public way. You'll also see that that sidewalk on the south side of the driveway or on the right side as you're looking at on the diagram will continue into the property over the MBTA tracks connecting to the building itself, and would allow anyone who wants to use public transportation, for instance, which is available along Woburn Street with connections to North Billerica T and the Gallagher Station in Lowell, would allow for an enhanced bus stop to be located at that driveway and accessible by means of a dedicated sidewalk that connects to the building. These improvements would not initially be warranted or required to support the particular tenant occupancy at day one, but could be warranted over time and subject to monitoring depending on the actual traffic generating characteristics of the property. And finally, in the next slide, there is a transportation demand management program that's been identified and it has been the subject of the peer review as well. This particular applicant will become a member of the Middlesex 3 Coalition. That's a transportation management association for this region that would allow any of the tenant employees to have access to a variety of programs that include rideshare matching, guaranteed ride home programs for folks who opt to use public transportation in lieu of a car, etc. There would be an employee transportation coordinator to ensure that the elements of the TMA program are known to the employees and would also be responsible for administrating any transportation demand management programs to the employees. I mentioned the shift hours are non-peak. We consider that a TDM type action by itself because it reduces the influence and impact that vehicles have on the traditional peak hours. And there'll be a series of other components that are offered by, and encouraged by the applicant of the tenant, such as automatic employee payroll deductions and processing, so that employees don't have to go to the bank in the middle of the day, so to speak. They have incentive to remain on campus to the extent feasible. Public transportation is an important piece here. We know that the Lowell Regional Transit Authority operates a bus along Woburn Street. It has a stop currently at the property, at the driveway, and that service provides a very important means of connecting the property both to the Gallagher Station on the Lowell side and the North Billerica MBTA station, which offers a commuter rail component to complement the property. The applicant will be continuing to coordinate with LRTA and MBTA not only in terms of making sure that the schedule information is posted for their employees, but that a bus stop is appropriately located and designed at the driveway to encourage the use of that service. Within the property itself, there will be accommodation for rideshare pickup and drop-off area closest to the building for those employees who opt to use that as one means of connection to either public transportation nodes or otherwise. There will be a bike share service within the property and a subsidy program that would encourage people to use transit by offering a partial subsidy funding the monthly pass for that service. And finally, on the last slide, just a few other components of that same TDM program would be preferential parking for folks using low emission vehicles or that carpool or van pool. I mentioned the sidewalk connection to the bus stop connecting the building, and within the property itself, there will be amenities available to the employees that include showers and cafeteria areas, amenities that allow employees to remain on campus and not necessarily have to go off campus for lunch and those types of items. So in conclusion, this particular development, given the tenant characteristics, is a relatively low traffic impact project. We're not saying it doesn't have an impact, but it's certainly well below the impacts that have historically and traditionally occurred by occupancy in the past of Raytheon and others. We believe that the infrastructure improvements that are being identified at the front door of the driveway are appropriate and could be brought to bear depending on the actual volumes that are created by the project. And we look forward to continued interaction with peer review to answer any remaining questions they or the board might have.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else from the petition side at this time?
Oh, gotta get off mute.
I think you put yourself back on mute. Bill.
Bob, you're on mute.
Oh. Okay, good. No, Mr. Chairman, any questions you have from the board? Would be glad to answer.
All right, very good. All right, we'll start with Mr. Battaglia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Mr. Buckley, it was great to have your presentation when we started. My initial reading of the plans and so forth, I thought you were coming forward with the secret CIA storage facility at the site, because reading through all of this documentation, I had no idea till you said that tonight what was going in this particular site. So I'm glad to hear that site is not going to be CIA and it's going to be actual operation with jobs for the community and so forth and so on. So thank you for that. So I guess I had a couple of questions, and I know this is going to be going on for a while, but so all of the trucks for the most part are going to be all private trucks, correct? Coming in, picking up, dropping off. They're not Home Depot trucks, right?
They will be delivering materials that will be then repackaged and redelivered by Home Depot. So
Okay.
they will be private trucks. It's not going to be a trucking terminal operation.
Okay.
The reason why you have spaces there is that this will be an e-commerce type of situation where someone places an order, and it may take a period of time to complete an order. So a truck may pull up to a loading bay, and that order will be fulfilled. So yes, there'll be deliveries made, whether they're private contractors delivering those the materials to the facility to then be repackaged and processed and delivered to their customers. That's the general operation.
Okay. So there'll be no trucks parked there overnight or at all, or
There'll be trailers parked in the rear of the site along the Concord River,
okay.
and there may be cabs parked there while the trucks are being loaded, but it will not be a standard trucking facility where they're coming and going. Without speaking out of turn, the amount of truck traffic, the heavy truck traffic, you're talking a few vehicles, maybe 2 or 3 a day.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, Jeff, Bob, just to clarify on that point, there's really two vehicle types that are going to be generated. The what they call box truck type, smaller unibody trucks that are making those deliveries of repackaged materials, and those tend to go out, by about 6:30, 7 in the morning, and return later in the day. So once they're out for the day. They come back. The other vehicle type is the tractor trailer vehicle activity, and that would really only start somewhere around 8 in the morning and would end in terms of arriving to the site somewhere around 5 or 6, and that's probably 1 or 2 tractors per hour on average during those hours. So this is not a high generating truck type terminal, as Bob had mentioned. This is very modest generating, but consistently generating use for truck activity during the daytime hours primarily.
Okay, great. I mean, one of my concerns would be that we make sure that the majority of the trucks are not traveling through the streets of Tewksbury, I would think, because there'll be a lot of trucks in and out, I think. If that's possible, that they use, in majority of cases, the 495 on-ramps to bypass some of the street traffic that we may generate in that area from this.
That's the same concern that the planning board and the town of Billerica had, that they be restricted, except for the box trucks that are making a delivery to a customer. But the large vehicles, first of all, there'd be no need for a tractor trailer to use a local street, but that is the same concern that your neighboring town had. So I don't think that would be a condition that would be problematic.
Okay. Just one last question, and I'm not sure we'll be here for a number of weeks, but are there any plans for the actual new building as far as any solar plans? I mean, you got a large building there with a large roof structure that would probably be ideal for solar to generate some activity there on the solar end.
I'm not aware of any, but my understanding is that at a building like that the weight structure, but I'm not aware of any intent to put solar on that.
Okay. All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
If I may just add to that point, the building code does require, as Bob said, the entire roof to be solar ready. So it will be.
Okay.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you.
We have you, Mr. Ryder?
Here we go. How about now?
Yep, all set.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm excited to see this parcel come back to life. I grew up in Lowell, and that was always a very busy site over there. I'll also like to commend the traffic study. Very well presented and very in-depth with detail. I think it was well presented, and I think it's going to be, as Mr. Fratalia stated, I think if we can guarantee that the tractor trailer traffic stay within the 495 corridor and use on those on-ramp and off-ramps and not use Billerica, Tewksbury, or even Lowell, because that will ultimately impact that road. But I did have one concern on the entrance. If you could go back to the entrance slide at the bridge, right, Discovery Way, on the turnout, when you're widening the road at the entrance. Could you go back to that slide?
That would be under a future condition?
Yes.
Yep.
There you go.
That slide?
It hasn't loaded yet.
10-second delay, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. I still haven't seen it yet. Nope, that's not it.
That's not the slide for some reason.
Are you looking for the site slide?
Yeah, I was looking for not the site slide, the one with the bridge, Woburn Street at Discovery Way, right where with the sidewalk right there. Yes, that's it. Correct. Thank you. Obviously, as part of this project, this picture does not depict the new storage facility that's there. Will there be much impact to the utilities? I know new transformers and utilities were put there. Has those been looked at in widening that right turning lane?
Yes. To answer that question, we've identified the improvements here so as to not impact those utilities. We are aware that they were recently installed.
Okay.
And so we've done a limited field review of those utility locations. The formal design of these improvements will be based on actual surveyed locations of those utilities to ensure that they are not impacted, or if to the extent they are impacted, they'll be mitigated.
Okay. And then you did talk about the electrical. What about water and sewer infrastructure? Will there be upgrades to that or existing systems?
The water would be a reuse of the existing water coming across the bridge. The water line is strapped to the bridge there. We're proposing an on-site tank to pressurize a fire system. I don't know if the screen has changed for you yet, but
it has not.
There is a fire tank to be located on site that will provide sufficient pressure and flow for the fire suppression system.
Okay.
We are adding a new sewage discharge force main.
Okay.
The site obviously is lower than the Woburn Street, so a new force main would be strapped to the bridge and connect to the sewer system in Woburn Street.
Okay.
And Connor, those discussions on fire suppression have been ongoing with the fire department, correct?
Yes, the fire department and Tewksbury Engineering department are aware of all of that.
Okay. Okay. And I just, obviously, from the sewerage, you'll probably have less flow from your existing, what the existing Raytheon facility was. What do you intend on number of employees working in that facility at one max capacity? Is there a number?
Bob Michaud, do you have that number to hand for the traffic?
Yeah, so during the daytime periods, we expect that there'll be approximately 100 to 150 employees on the so-called daytime shift period. The 150 is a high estimate at this point. The specific shift periods that relate to daytime activities start at 6 in the morning and are followed by shifts at 10 and noon. So you've got 3 daytime shifts that have roughly 100, actually it's 100 to 125 daytime employees.
Okay. Okay.
In terms of sewer flow, the flow from this facility is almost insignificant in comparison to the remediation discharge that comes across in the existing sewer force main.
Absolutely. Okay. And, I just wanted to make sure that if you are reusing the existing or new on the utilities. But other than that, I have, that's it for now. But once again, a great job, great presentation, and looking forward to this project coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to echo Eric's comments about the firm, about the project. I think it's fantastic for the town, both towns. We pick up a little bit of square footage, which is always a benefit. I only have one question. A couple of the questions have already been asked on especially the box trucks and cut throughs and stuff like that. That's not my question. My only question is, so as you could entice some of your staff to use the LRTA. If your bus stop was inside the site, do you think that might formulate a little more use on the LRTA, whether they're going to Gallagher or to Home or to Billerica? Is there a chance that they could do that instead of having to walk out to the end of the driveway? They could pick it up at a site inside. Is that possible?
Yeah, through the Middlesex 3 Coalition, we are going to have those discussions. I will tell you that the T, as well as the LRTA, generally does not like to go on private property. But given that this is an economic issue for potential jobs, they may make an exception. But we will be having those discussions. We will have discussions to actually put a bus stop right at the site entrance. But with the Middlesex 3 Coalition, which Tewksbury and Billerica were big founding members of and have been very active in it, I think there's a good chance we'll have some receptivity. Whether they'll go all the way in remains to be seen, but there may be a way to entice them to do something creative.
Very good. Thank you very much. I like that. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. So most of the other members have asked sort of the early on questions. The only thing I've asked, I think it's really good that the main operations will be bringing people in off peak hours. I mean, that's ideal, obviously. One question, and I think it's not a problem, but I just want to make sure I ask it, is that the noise levels, it sounds like it will be starting a bit early. For where the building is and where the loading dock would be, am I correct in presuming that the noise that might be produced during those early hours to get those trucks out early so that they're not causing traffic problems shouldn't be a problem to the surrounding, anyone in the neighborhood?
We feel comfortable we'll be able to satisfy that concern.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I feel like that'll be a big one because I know you'd ask about, some of the waivers regarding landscaping. I think for most of the members, when we do these the big projects or small for that matter, taking the residents into consideration to make sure if we're leaving natural growth, that will be sufficient to cut down on either anything from a site standpoint or from a sound standpoint as much as possible. And typically, we retain the right to make sure that in the future, if we find that there's an issue that we might ask for more things to be put in, I presume that won't be an issue, correct?
Correct. Now, we have, first of all, we'll satisfy you on that issue, but we also have a buffer here between the train, the actual rail line, there's commercial development acting as a buffer before you even get to Woburn Street. So this project is on the other side of the train. There's the actual commercial development, then you get to Woburn Street, then there's residential. But we will satisfy you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really one of the real key points for the development is that something was there before. So, we have an idea of, if there are any concerns that the residents would have, they would have had them, or someone would have had them for the previous use, and we, have an idea about what those might be. So and this isn't a building from scratch, which is nice. So I think that's important. And logistically, the buffers you have, or not the buffer, but the things that buffer your property really allow for some space between you and, people you'd be most likely to impact, which I think is really good for the site as well.
I will point out also, we've had very good conversations and relations with Baker Commodities next door and enhancing access and communications as to making the sites work. So,
all right, that's good to hear as well. And I think from your earliest comment, I'll just highlight, it is nice to see, neighboring towns being able to work together so well on a big project. That doesn't always happen. And it's nice to hear you say it and for us to be part of a development that's actually doing that. With that, I will open it up to the audience. Is there anyone on the line who wishes to discuss this project?
We have no callers, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Obviously, as some of the other members have already mentioned, this will go on, so there'll be some more things for us to bring up as we go along. Anna, I know you provided the members with some comments and some, just a list of comments for us. Can we get those out to the petitioner as well? Just so they know the next time we have to discuss them, we'll have something in hand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, they did get a copy of the memo, but I can certainly resend it to them.
If they have a copy of it, then what I would add then is, from the list of comments that were provided, are there any specific issues the petitioner has with any of those?
No, we don't have any issue with those comments.
Mr. Chairman, we also have comments from Bill Ricker. What our intent would be to consolidate those and give a unified response. And as I said earlier, and as you just reiterated, the cooperation has been very, very good. So we, as one town raises an issue, we want to make sure that it's covered in the other town, and we've worked very well on that. So we've taken the Tewksbury comments. We're running them by Bill Ricker on the traffic. I know Bob's preparing a consolidated response to that. I know that we're doing the same thing with the erosion and the sediment, the stormwater plan. So when we're done, it should fit together very well. So,
oh, very good. All right, so we have no public comment. Are there any other comments from anyone on the board at this time?
I'm all set.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, excellent. So with that, then what is the pleasure of the board for continuing this to 7:20 on May 27th? We have a motion?
Is that fine with them?
You guys ready to?
Could we?
April or May?
Did I hear April 27th or May 11th? Or?
Well, we have April 27th is our next meeting. The meeting after that would be May 4th.
Could we shoot for the 27th? If we can't, we'll just send a note to continue.
Yeah, that's ideal. Let's do it. Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
So with that,
is that all right with our team?
That works for me.
Okay.
Connor.
Yep, same.
And Mr. Chairman, if we can't respond on the open issues, we're not going to clog your agenda. We'll send you a note asking for a continuance.
very good. Appreciate it. So with that, then we have a motion to continue this to 7:20 on April 27th.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman. Yep.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening. Bye-bye.
All right, that moves us on to agenda item H, which is 1420 Andover Street. Also, this hearing was continued but not opened at our last meeting, so have a motion to waive the public reading.
So moved.
Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. Do we have anyone here for 1420 Andover Street?
Mr. Chairman, this is David Plunkett. I'm on telephone contact at this time, I believe.
All right, very good. Mr. Plunkett, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I apologize not being able to get online, but it kicked me off about 5 times and tells me I don't have enough memory in my computer, my laptop here. So we'll check that out before the next meeting. Mr. Chairman, this is a matter that is a request for modification. This is the Naomi Way subdivision off of at 1420 Andover Street. This was a plan that had gone through a fairly significant process of public hearing and refinement. What happened at the time after the approval was there was a determination to try to address 2 issues, or an issue that with the town engineer, and the means of addressing it was thought to be a way of doing it would be to have a triangular portion of Lot 2, which was not part of the subdivided lot, to convey it over to the homeowners association. And then also there was a reference on the plan to have the strip of land conveyed over to that lot too. The issue that came up was that the impact upon Lot 2, this is registered land. Also, Lot 2 is created and exists by means of a variance, that there was a significant impact upon Lot 2 relative to the title of Lot 2 as it exists. So there's been a request for the modification is to basically correct that issue. And if you looked at the an entire plan, revised definitive subdivision plan has been submitted with the application. But on the application itself, there are two legal size pages that shows the areas on that original subdivision plan. And that shows that it was indicated as proposed parcel 2B to be combined with proposed parcel 5D, and proposed lot 2A to be combined with proposed parcel 5C. So basically what this modification does, it eliminates those two items and requests that we address it by means of a waiver by the planning board of sections 8.1, excuse me, as I balance the phone in my 8.17 and 8.18. This has absolutely no impact upon the actual layout and development of the subdivision. That area, that small triangular portion that was subject to being conveyed over to the homeowners association, is subject to a utility easement anyways, and cannot be, there can be no further development in that area. And also between the lot 2 and the two lots created by the subdivision, there will be a mutual easements in covenants in which the lot 2 can only access the property through the driveway off of the Naomi Way, and that there will be no further access along the 133 frontage. It's a situation where, we've talked with Mr. Hardiman, and he has submitted a letter saying that, look, he leaves it to the discretion of the board where this is a private way. It's going to be cared for by the homeowners association, and he's leaving it to the discretion of the board. And I would say that this is a situation where, there is absolutely no change to the layout and development of the property. And we have, had a homeowners association, reviewed and approved. I spoke to, I believe in your package, there is the mocked up homeowners association document that was circulated last Tuesday, and speaking with Attorney Zaroulis today, just to verify that, he has no objection. He had no further comments and approved of that document. And so that addresses the homeowners association covenants and, and the layout of the trust itself. And as I say, this is a matter that really has no impact upon the development itself or anything that would be perceived or seen by anybody seeing the proposal as was allowed by the board back, if I can get the date, I think it was it was back in 2019, October of 2019. I'm sorry, September 27th of 2019. So there's been there's nothing changed into the actual layout of the roadway. There's no change to the actual development of the site. this is a matter just to address an issue that came up after the fact. And we would ask, the board's approval of the modification as requested. At this point, turn it over to Mr. Hammer to see if he has anything further to add relative to the technical aspects of the change.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering and Surveying, Lowell, Mass. I don't know if the board recalls when we were discussing this very issue related to the rounding, we had left it up to the town engineer to see if we could work through that rounding with the town engineer, in that the rounding itself was a right-of-way rounding that wasn't necessary for the construction of the roadway. So that's when the rounding ended up being incorporated into the plans. And taking out the rounding right-of-way does not affect the construction of the common drive in any way. I can put it to the board now. Did everyone hear that?
I got it, Mr. Hammer. Yep.
Okay. I didn't hear a response. I wasn't sure if there was a problem on the audio.
Mr. Johnson, you still with us?
Sorry. I put the mute on. I apologize. Mr. Fowler, we'll start with you.
He's muted. There you go.
He's on now.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now, Mr. Fowler.
I said I was all set.
Oh, very good. Thank you. And we'll move on to Mr. Ryder.
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Fattalia.
All set. No problems with the change.
All right. The chair doesn't have any problems with the change either. There was I think the one on the homeowners association question in town planners comments is addressed. I think the other one was just submitting plans that reflect the change. Is that correct?
I believe she's moved.
Anna?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. All right, so then otherwise, I'm all set as well. So we'll open up this for anyone in the audience, anyone at home who has any questions or comments. Do you have anyone on the line for this matter?
No calls, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so we'll give it a couple of seconds just to make sure that we cover the delay, in case anybody has any questions or comments, but I doubt that we're going to have anybody call in on this. I mean, I think we all agree that we discussed this back when we originally did it. I think we would have done this back then if it had been the way we suggested it be addressed. So I don't see any reason why we'd have any issue with it now. Still no one on the line, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So with that, I will bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. As to the modification of the definitive subdivision, what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to endorse the modification as written.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the modification to the subdivision plan. I have a second. Just before we close this out, I think the two things, we just get a confirmation from town council that he is in fact all set with the homeowners association language. Is that fine with everybody?
Yeah, that's good, sir.
Yep.
And that we ask the petitioner just to submit those revised plans as well. Is that all right as well?
That's fine, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good. And with that, I'll go around. Mr. Fowler?
Sorry, Mr.
sorry.
Chairman.
Yes.
There's just the two waivers if you approve them as part of the vote.
All right, so what, we have the list in here?
So it's section 8.1.7 and
Oh, that's right.
8.1.8 in
All right,
the
so-
subdivision rules and regulations.
All right, so we'll take it back. We'll do the waivers first. So we have a request for waivers of 8.1.7 and 8.1.8. Do I have a motion to approve the waivers?
Motion to approve the waivers, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second? All right, motion made and seconded. We'll go through. Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Battaglia?
Yes.
The chair votes yes as well, so that's unanimous. And then now back to the modification definitive subdivision. We had a motion and a second. So all those, actually, I gotta take it through again. Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Battaglia?
Yes.
Chair votes aye as well. We're unanimous on the modification to the definitive subdivision. All right, thank you, Mr. Plunkett. Mr. Hammer?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Moving on to agenda item I, 600 Woburn Street. Site plan special permit continued from our 3:30 meeting. Do we have anyone on the line for 600 Woburn Street?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Gene Sullivan, the project engineer. Paul DiMaggio, the property owner, is on the line as well, I believe.
Yeah, I just
And-
joined. I got to figure out the camera.
And also Ken Cram, our traffic consultant, is on the line. We haven't been in front of the board for a couple of months. We've been working through some drainage difficulties with our high groundwater table out there, but we believe we've got a solution that'll be amenable to the town engineer. In the meantime, we were requested to have a traffic study done and peer reviewed. And our goal tonight was to review the responses to some issues raised by the peer reviewer. And I guess with that, we'll let Ken talk to those. I'm not certain if the peer reviewer is on the call or not.
Yes, for the record, Justin Kurtz with Beta is here.
Okay.
Very good.
Hey, Justin. Hey, Ken.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we prepared a letter report dated January 31, 2020, which Mr. Kierwitz from Beta Group reviewed and submitted a letter on March 23, 2020. And we prepared a written response dated April 8, 2020 to about 10 or 12 comments, which incorporated some traffic numbers and some parking issues and circulation on site, just to make sure that that can happen. So just to quickly go through the comments, the first one dealt with crash history. We had used Mass DOT's website to review the available crash data. And based on that data, there were still no crashes reported over the past 5 years. And we checked with the owner of the property, Mr. DiMaggio, and he indicated that he could not recollect when there was ever a crash at the site entrance on Woburn Street. There was a question as to how we determined our peak hours. And our peak hours were established based on a review of the existing operations that have been ongoing at that facility for a number of years. Their shift schedules are outside of the peak hours. They start at 6 a.m. Or 7 a.m. I'm sorry, 7 a.m. so the bulk of the employees arrive before that peak hour. So what we did was we just put it into a simple spreadsheet, spread it out according throughout the day. And that gave us the traffic projections we had based on the existing uses on the site for the baseline numbers. Initially, because when we first looked at this, we saw how small the project was in terms of the expansion, and based on the anticipated use, we did not do any traffic counts out there. But as in response to with a comment, we did a little research, and Mass DOT had a projected count for Woburn Street just south of the site on the Billerica-Tewksbury Town line in 2019, which had a daily count of just about 9,150 vehicles. So we put that in. The next question was about how the trip generation was obtained. And Mr. DiMaggio could probably talk about this clearer since he's been there for a number of years. But we use the projected numbers. What we have here is an interesting case because he has a facility in Lawrence which is used solely for storage of his materials that he builds and works with. And basically the primary purpose of this project is to consolidate all that into one building. There are, shuttles that go back and forth between the Lawrence and Tewksbury sites 2 or 3 times a day, and those shuttle trips would go away in the future when everything is all consolidated within the site on Tewksbury. Another question was asked, the origin and purpose of quote-unquote miscellaneous trips. Because we didn't use the ITE for our traffic generation purposes, we felt it was reasonable to assume that sometimes there are other trips that occur during the course of the day that the employees make. For instance, if an employee has a doctor visit in the middle of the day he has to go to, that would be a miscellaneous trip. And anecdotally, talking with Mr. DiMaggio, he indicated that that currently happens now, as well as an employee during the morning break or the afternoon break will take up an order and make a run up to Dunkin' Donuts and come right back with coffee and whatnot for his fellow employees. So that would be what we would consider a miscellaneous trip. And so to be conservative, we assumed, based on our projections, that there would be about 10%, which is a very small number because the whole overall project generates at a very low rate. In the site distance assessment, we used a 40-mile-per-hour speed. The posted speed limit is 30, and we got the 40 to use in the analysis because we wanted A, to be a little conservative, and B, I drove the corridor several times during the peak in the morning to see what the vehicles that are currently on Woburn Street are traveling at. And of course, this was before the pandemic hit. And I found that I was going between 35 and 40 on a regular basis. So we used 40, and the driveway has adequate sight distance for a 40-mile-an-hour speed. Again, how the vendor UPS trips remain unchanged because the nature of the facility is still the same thing. All we've done is consolidate and bring in the storage into the existing building. There was a question about will there be weekend operations? And the answer to that is yes, but it's on a much smaller scale. There would be 4 employees on the first shift and 4 on the second. So that would be a lot smaller than on a normal day. We also, as a comparison, in the original letter, we did have the ITE trip generation numbers as well as comparison. Whereas we're showing very small, if any, increase. If we use the ITE data for general light industrial use, we would be talking about 9 or 6 additional trips during the peak hours, which when you add that on top of the 9,150 trips a day that are already out there, we're talking less than about a 1% increase in terms of traffic volumes. Then we get into a couple of items on the site itself. One question was asked, clarify whether a path exists from the handicap spaces into the building. And basically where the handicap spaces that exist now And the new one that will exist as part of the addition, the entrance to the building is right there at the end of the parking stall. So there will be a concrete path going into the building at that point. And then lastly, and I don't have graphics for you to show, but they are part of what we submitted in our April 8th letter. It was asked, could a fire truck circulate the site? And they wanted to make sure that the tractor trailer trucks could get in. So we ran auto turn runs for both of those, and those were attached, and they show that the vehicles can access the site. So that's a brief summary of what we have done. This project is it's a good sized project for Mr. DiMaggio, but overall, in terms of the additional impact in traffic, it's a consolidation because the shuttle trips will now go away, and the number of traffic generation will still be relatively small because the shift schedules are outside of normal peak hours. And if you have any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them.
All right, so before I open it up to the board for any questions, I'll just check with Justin. Does Beta have any comments on the responses from Bayside?
No, we are pretty agreeable to all the current responses. The one thing that we do defer to the board, I know we had a couple comments in there about the traffic study, and as Ken pointed out, it's not necessarily required, but we do want to defer to the board if they, as a small project expansion to the site, if the board wanted a full traffic study, that is something that, even if it's traffic counts, but we're okay with Ken's response. If the board wanted that, we defer to them. And then the only other thing, just to follow up a question, was with the customer, vendor, FedEx, and UPS trips, where this is just added storage, would we see any, that stayed the same between the existing and the proposed site? Just quickly, would that impact anything else where there's more storage, there may be more capacity now? Would that require any additional trips where it's 5 and 5 between the existing and the proposed, but would that change where there's increased capacity? That's the only other question, or the only follow-up that we'd have. Other than that, Beta is acceptable to all these responses.
Oh, thank you. Do you guys want to respond to that before I open it up to the board?
Paul DiMaggio, I might want to take that one on because I'm at the Lawrence facility that we're trying to move in. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh. UPS and things coming into the Lawrence plant is nil. In fact, I go out to drop off any UPS deliveries. We used to have a steady UPS there when there was manufacturing. There's nothing now, so there really should be no increase. Anything that I send out will go with whatever UPS picks up from the facility as it is. And just one other thing to correct Ken, it was his study, and I don't have it in front of me. But I believe it was the site distance is good for 50 miles an hour, Ken.
Yes, that is correct. I didn't clarify that. The site distance is good for 50, but we looked at it in terms of a 40-mile-an-hour speed.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, yep, that's fine. So again, the only outstanding thing that we would say is we defer to the board if they wanted a further traffic study to actually count the intersection. Other than that, the site driveway. Other than that, we're okay with the comments responded by Ken.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. We'll start with Mr. Vitalia.
Get to unmute, Vinny.
All right, how you doing? All right.
There you go. Floor is yours, Mr. Vitalia.
My comment was, as long as Justin is okay with the review of the traffic study by Bayside, and I am fine as well. So we're good. I'm good on my end as far as traffic goes.
All right, very good. Mr. Fowler?
He's muted again.
Here he is.
I am also all set. I have one question for you, though. Is that a code 95 mask you have on the scarf? The scarf.
I do this.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Very colorful. Good, good. Again, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bye, Mr. Cronin.
All right.
Goodbye, Mr. Fowler.
Mr. Ryder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Myself as well. Thank you, Justin, for your review. Obviously, I reviewed everything, Justin. I agree with Justin, what he came up with. I don't think it's necessary for a full traffic study. I'm all set. Thank you very much.
All right. I agree with Mr. Ryder's comment. I don't see the need for a full traffic study for this. I feel comfortable with what Bayside has presented and what it is reviewed at this point. So we have the letter from Mr. Hardeman. Anna, where do we stand, or do you know any more than what's here? I guess that's my question.
In terms of the town engineer?
Correct.
Nope, whatever we have is what information I have. I think just on my end for our department, we just need the revised plans to show the changes to the parking they talked about back in the last hearing. And then to confirm any waivers that they will be requesting. So those are the two outstanding items in terms of our department. So.
Okay, so then let me ask you this, Anna. I don't recall when we opened this, but does this fall under our new process?
So it does, but given the pandemic, I think how I've been trying to do this is just be flexible as possible, and I'm trying to put together the decisions and work with the applicants as quickly as possible. So I'm very flexible.
All right. So I want to try to refresh my memory because it has been a bit of a little while since we last spoke on this one. But I don't know where we left off on any special conditions that we wanted. I remember there was something about I don't know, the fence or something for wildlife crisscrossing or something. Is that? I don't remember where we left that off.
Yeah, so there was a discussion, I believe it was back in January was the last meeting. And there had been discussion about removing that fence, and then I looked at the minutes, and then I think it was ultimately decided to retain the fence as is, but I don't know if the board wants to add a condition about the height or making any changes to it. I also today looked at another condition that was mentioned at that meeting was to the loading dock operations of hours shall be restricted to Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So that was one that was called out.
Okay, so other than those, I just want to run through. Do any of the members recall any other conditions that we wanted to include on this project?
I do not.
Mr. Fowler?
He's muted again.
Yeah. There you are.
Hey,
Do you recall any other conditions that you wanted addressed, Mr. Fowler?
No, I don't.
Okay, Mr. Fratalia, you?
I think the only question we had was again in the back with the parking, alleviating some parking if we didn't need it to keep it more green back there and keep the wildlife keep coming, I believe. Correct? Is that
Yes.
accurate? Yeah.
We were going to eliminate about 18 spaces on the towards the rear of the property and have them for future if needed.
Okay, so they'll stay in their current, or they'll stay in a undeveloped state until less than until they're needed.
Correct.
All right. So so the 18 spaces, the hours of Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the loading dock, and as I recall it, I think, at least from my point of view, I know we had a resident who commented on it, but I thought it was more important to keep the fence for children's safety and allow the wildlife to continue jumping over it as I believe they do currently. Is everybody else
That's
okay
correct.
with that?
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add, speaking with the person on site, Nash, who likes to watch the wildlife. He said there's actually a pretty good sized path that runs next to the fence. He's seen them jump over the fence in the back of the property, not so much on the front. So, and also the gentleman, I can't remember the name right now, up on North Billerica Road and Park Ave, Park Street. He, I think he was fairly happy with what we were doing with it.
Okay.
He was supportive the last I spoke to him.
Yeah, I didn't recall those as being major stumbling blocks. So I just wanted to make sure that we were refreshing our memory on what they were. So the woodland creatures would be fine with some exercise opportunities jumping over the fence. So, all right. So with that, I will open it up. Do we have anyone in the audience? I'm sorry, on the line. Any comments for this?
No calls, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so I'll just while we delay that for a minute, we'll just run through. So the only conditions I have are the 18 spaces will be left undeveloped and set aside for future use if necessary. The loading dock limitations are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And as the town planner had commented, do we have waiver requests?
So I have the initial application, which had the waiver request for the lot coverage to be increased to, I believe it's 19.6. But if they're reducing the parking in the back, then they're going to need a waiver for parking. So I need them to submit an updated letter with the waivers, and if there's a second waiver requested.
Which we'll do with the revised plans.
Yeah, with the revised plans, and then I need to review that. So I can get feedback on that if there's any suggestions afterwards, but should be all set once I get to see those.
So Anna, then from your perspective, waiting for those couple of things to come in and then render our final decision at our next meeting, is that?
Yeah, I would recommend you would continue it based off of the feedback we've given the applicants. And then I wasn't sure if the board was going to require a performance bond for this modification, if it would be necessary.
All right, let me just run through. Mr. Fowler, do you wish to have the performance bond?
What would you recommend, Anna, for the cost on this?
I mean, typically it would be like $10,000. It varies on the site. We could get a recommendation from the town engineer as well.
That sounds adequate to me.
Okay, Mr. Fatal, you're all right with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that too as well.
Mr. Ryder?
Absolutely.
The petitioner have no issue with that?
No problem with me. Not normally, given what is going on today, who knows?
All right, so then my recommendation before we move on then would be to we're pretty much all lined up on this, so I would anticipate us being able to vote on this at our next meeting. But the town planner did ask that we continue this to the next one just to have everything written up and signed off on. Are the other members fine with that?
Yeah, I'll start with that, Mr. Chairman. Sounds good.
All right, so then with that, could I have a motion to continue this matter to 7/25 on April 27th?
So moved.
All right, a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes unanimously. We'll see you guys on the 27th.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item J, which is 325 Marshall Street. The applicant has requested the continuance to our April 27th meeting. It is currently penciled in for 7:10. So we have a motion to continue this hearing till 7:10 on April 27th.
So moved.
So second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, motion carries. Make one comment. We did get a decent amount of information for agenda item J. So just a reminder to the board members to hold on to those papers for our next meeting.
Yep.
They will not be in our next package. All right, so That brings us to agenda item K, 1037 North Street, 1547 Andover Street et al. Site plan special permit, Community Village Overlay District continued from our March 30th meeting. Do we have anyone here for this matter?
Anyone? Yep, Andy's here.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, still muted.
Nope, we got you.
Yes, okay.
I'm here.
Yeah, so John Finaros and Steve Lawrenson from ACC Realty are also both on the call here. I will try and bring up my screen. We can get the plan up.
For the record, I don't think when you said who you were that we were online. So if you just state your name again,
Sure.
just for the record.
Yeah, so Andy Street, Civil Design Consultants.
Thank you.
And John Finaris, applicant.
Thank you. Floor is yours, John.
We were last before this board, I believe March 9th, so about a month ago. Since that time, really very little has changed. We received a letter from the DPW. There was just really some minor tweaks that came out of that. We increased the size of the sewer laterals from 4 inches to 6 inches, so really no design change there, but that was something that they would like to see, so we made that change. We adjusted the elevation of a sewer manhole rim, the label on that were off by. So those were kind of the really the only tweaks that came out of the DPW letter. I should stop. I'm just assumed we were going to forego the overall discussion about this. We've been here quite a bit for this project. I'm happy to break this down any level that the board sees fit, but I was just kind of moving straight into where we're at today compared to.
Unless any of the members have any objection, that's fine with me.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chairman. Let's move forward. We've seen this enough.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So we resubmitted a set of plans with those few minor changes, got a letter back from DPW that was essentially clean. We have an ongoing discussion with them about sewer connection. That's been kind of standing this whole time. As it stands today, we can connect to the sewer. We haven't really been told we can't, but they're still reviewing that pump and making sure there's capacity. And if there isn't, then we're going to have to look into alternative means. But there is a way to sewer this development one way or another. And then they also like to see some kind of standard details notes in the flow test to confirm the size of the water main, which is typical and things that we often do prior to construction, provide that information to the DPW. We've also, I think, actually prior to the previous meeting on the 9th, we had a letter from the fire department. They're just misplaced, I think, here, but they saw the last round of plans that was presented at the meeting on the 9th. And again, the layout and the configuration of the buildings, driveways haven't changed since then, but just kind of reading from their letter to Sawicki sent an email to Alexander Louder in the planning office that, among other things, said that the plans appear to address the fire department access concerns. So they'll still come back during construction to test this once things are in the ground. But in general, with the design at the design level, they seem to be satisfied that we've worked through challenges and concerns we had with the site. There's also been some work with Ms. McGinty in the planning office. We've gone back and forth with the draft special permit, provided her with some information, put together a narrative describing compliance with zoning and like that. So, yeah, really pretty similar to where we were at last time, but I think we've gone one step further and satisfied all outstanding comments. But as always, happy to answer any questions or field any comments from the board.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Ryder.
All right. Thank you, Andy. I have a question in regards to the sewer. If the capacity is not there, what is your intent? Put a station on the site with a holding tank? Is that your only other option?
Well, there's the sewage could be pumped up to the school there, the Dewing School.
Yep.
There's a manhole there. I believe Raytheon I think his Raytheon back there actually pumps to there as well. So there is a solution. It's not necessarily as cheap and effective, but there is a solution there that could be implemented if need be.
Okay. That being said, you'll need a pump from your site. If that is in fact the case, have you looked on that on the property? Because then you'd actually have to come back to us. So has that been looked at?
It's kind of passively. We have not spent a lot of time on that, but we are well aware that if the site changes, there's a process for that, and we'd be back to the board for that. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just looking at if that does change, is that going to change your entire grading plan for your utilities? Or obviously, just based on cost of pipe in the road, you're going to want to come out on North Street versus coming out on Andover Street, and obviously shortest path. So is that going to change your overall layout? Not so much of the units, but I would say your utility layout.
Yeah, I mean, the intent would be to kind of minimize these changes as much as possible.
Understand.
So we connect in Andover because that's the ideal. The current layout connects in Andover because that's the ideal spot for us in the DPW.
Yep.
If it needed to change, I guess we might flip that around and come out to North because it would be shorter.
Yes.
But we would certainly have to be aware of any sort of. I know that intersection is under discussion for some reconstruction, so have to be aware of paving.
Correct.
A lot of considerations that will go in.
Okay. Did Mr. Hardiman get back to you at all on when he believes the capacity? You're talking minimal flow. 3, 6, 9, 13, 18. 330 gallons per bedroom. You're talking minimal flow.
Right.
I can see if you put a holding tank on the site, you may get around a capacity or a slow discharge into that main.
Right. Yeah, that could be an option. We've been talking with Mr. Hardman really for months now, just checking in with him, seeing where that study stands, and we've been trying to work with him to get this answer down, and that's kind of the best I can say, I guess. We haven't gotten much feedback other than what the outstanding comment has been about this, but so I think there's several solutions. I think, and you've hit on a few of them there.
Okay, I'm just concerned that the layout where that have to be, obviously try to minimize with a chamber, and that may impact the site. So, and that's why I raised the concerns. I'm not overall concerned with the location of the buildings. I don't think those will change, but whether you have to give an easement or what has to be done, that may impact the layout of, your green space or landscaping. So that's why I raised those concerns.
Sure. Yeah, no, and we're aware of it, and it's kind of an interesting one because we haven't really been told we can't connect to the store. It's just that it's kind of under review.
Okay.
So once the John and Steve have something else on it, I think the intent is to try and move forward with this, and if something comes up, then we'll have to deal with that and be back before this board with some tweaks if necessary.
Okay, I guess this is the next one. Thank you, Andy. Anna, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Anna. Can we, this is a critical component to this development. Whether they need to modify the site for whatever reason, can reach out to Mr. Hardiman, and hopefully we can have that answer by next meeting. Would that help, Andy, giving you the next meeting a definitive whether you can have that flow? I don't know if that's possible, but this is, as stated earlier, we've made this applicant, you jump through many hoops, and so I just don't want to have him come back after we approve something and then we have to change something again. I'm just trying to expedite the process moving forward for him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, we have been in discussions with Mr. Hardeman for quite some time on this. So I really have no sense of where that study stands or when it might be resolved or anything. The sense I get, and this is different in this format, that I can't really just lean across the table here and chat with the applicant here, but the sense I get is that they would like to kind of just move forward, and if the chips fall differently, then it needs to be addressed.
Understand. Anna, could you reach out to Mr. Hardeman and see if that's a potential to get the board a decision on that sooner than later?
Yeah, Mr. Ryder, I can certainly, I'll follow up with him with an email correspondence to get a status update on that if we have a final answer.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Chairman, lastly, I'm glad to see that from the fire department, everything worked out with this layout. Like I said, I know the applicant's been here, and they've been great coming back with all of our recommendations and changes. So I'd like to see this move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Mr. Fowler.
Andy, I'm all set.
All right. Mr. Fattalia.
Mr. Chairman, I think I am all set as well. I would even like to approve this development of this proposal and with a condition that if we have to change it down the road, that we do, just to give these guys the opportunity to move forward. We've been playing with this development for a long time and trying to do the best for all parties involved. I think we did that. We got to this point, so I don't have a problem if we were to approve this and with a condition that if in the event it has to get changed, then it does, and I think we can work with the applicant very well on this. So I'm all set.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fattalia. I don't disagree, but what Mr. Fattalia offers an alternative to what Mr. Ryder sort of suggested. I was ready to comment on it from Mr. Ryder's comment. It's that I know we've made it made an effort to not do things subject to anymore if we can help it. However, what I was originally going to say was that if we did put this off till the next hearing and we didn't get an answer, I would have suggested that the board be prepared to go forward on this with a subject to condition if we can't get an answer. If the board prefers to go forward tonight, if that's the will of the board, that's fine too. But, if we do continue it, I don't want to continue it until we get an answer. It would be only to see if we got an answer by the next meeting. And if we don't, then simply put in the subject to, in the event they can't hook up, then the petitioner is aware that they will have to provide an alternative solution to that problem, but that they understood it, we knew about it, and that we moved forward. Either version is okay with me. I'm fine either way. I don't know what the rest of the board members feel. Obviously, I know Mr. Fattalia would like to move forward, so Mr. Fowler, I don't know which of those two you prefer.
He's muted.
Still muted, Mr. Fowler. There you go.
I'm all set either way. I asked Andy what's his feeling.
Mr. Ryder?
I agree. And Mr. Chairman, I only brought that up because I don't want the applicant to have to, I want to, what he's gone through, the applicant's gone through here back and forth. I'm just trying to streamline that. I'm okay with moving it with the condition that he's not able to tie into the sewer at that location. He may have to come back for other approvals. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Anna, from your perspective, do you see any issue if we decide to go forward this evening, adding that condition from the town perspective?
I don't see an issue with that. I've updated the draft decision to already include that wording.
Okay.
And that I believe you should have gotten that in the packet for this week.
So the version from you is the most updated version, correct?
Yeah, and in this case, we were able to do pretty much a whole draft decision because we were working on it prior to the pandemic. And so the applicant and I
Okay.
have been working on this draft.
Mr. Chairman, it's condition L that addresses that.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yes.
Perfect, okay. All right, so the other members have this draft decision in front of them as well. Do any of the members have any issue with the draft decision provided by Mr. Ginty?
Mr. Chairman, I am all set with this as far as the conditions, and I'd like to make a
Hearing any,
motion.
so does the
pretty soon,
petitioner have any issue with the final version that we have here?
No, we've been through it. Yeah, we've been back and forth with Mr. McGinty, and yeah, feel comfortable.
All right, can we, Anna, is one of the sheets in here have the waivers or not?
So the waivers are listed as item B under the additional special permit provisions.
Page 7.
I got it now. Very good. All right.
So that's where the waivers are put.
All right. So we don't have any additions to what's here. Is that correct?
Yeah, this waiver list is complete in the draft special permit.
All right. All right. So then with that, I will open up to the audience. Is there any audience? If there's anyone at home who has any comments on this? Do we have anyone online for this? Do not have anyone on the line, correct?
Sorry about that. Yes, there's no one on the line.
All right. Very good. Well, that delay helped us cover our delay on the TV.
10 seconds.
so
I think we caught up.
Good enough. Perfect. So, seeing no comment, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we close the hearing.
All right, I move to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. As to the site plan special permit, Community Village Overlay District as submitted. we
Waivers
have a-
first.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, waivers. We have a motion on the waivers as submitted and listed in section B. It'd be section 8668, section 19.041, chapter 19, section 8668, and section 5421. We have a motion on the
I'd like to
waivers.
make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the waivers as documented on the special permit paperwork.
As requested.
Yep.
Right.
All right. So we have a motion made. Do we have a second?
Second.
I believe I heard a second. So all those in favor, we'll go through one by one. Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Mr. Fratalia?
Yes.
And myself, I vote aye as well. So unanimous on the waivers. As to the site plan special permit, Community Village Overlay District, we have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the special permit as documented on 1037 North Street, 1547 Andover Street, 1553 Andover Street, and 1563 Andover Street as written.
All right, so I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Ryder.
Yes. No. Just want to make sure that make that motion in case they have to come back. Do we want to put that in that motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
so. Okay.
Yep. With the
Okay.
condition, right?
Yep.
Mr.
Excellent.
Chairman,
Yes.
I think it would be helpful for the audience to hear the conditions for the special permit.
Okay. That's not something we can put up on the screen, correct?
I don't think I can put on the screen. I'm not a presenter, but try.
A through O, correct?
Yeah, so say through, oh, yes, that's correct. And we've already done item B, which is the waivers.
Okay, so I'll run through them. A, the applicant will post a $10,000 performance guarantee in the form of a saving passbook with the town of Tewksbury or such alternative security acceptable to the board. Said guarantee will be released upon the planning board's final acceptance of the as-built plan for the project. B were the waivers that we just granted. C, there will be a 15% free affordable units provided to the town. D, the centralized mailbox for the U.S. Postal Service with 18 units shall be responsibility of the homeowners association. E, snow shall not be located in the fire lanes or residential or guest parking. In addition, snow storage is required through off-site snow removal. The planning board will retain control. F, approval of the fire department of the turning radius to access all 18 units. G, the property owner, AAC Realty LLC, shall plant on the southern property line abutting of 1015 North Street as depicted on the landscaping plan revised through March 2nd, 2020, 14 hemlock trees and 6 spruce trees, and shall maintain said trees in perpetuity as landscape screening buffer for the abutters. H, in addition, if additional landscaping is needed on the south side to protect residents, planning board will retain control. I, landscaping shall not block the line of sight at corner of Andover and North Street. J, the pervious pavement shall be maintained in perpetuity. K, the applicant shall provide the town with all necessary easement plans by town meeting acceptance to Andover Street and North Street for the sidewalk, curbing, and other town-owned facilities. L, the applicant shall provide alternative means of sewage disposal with final approval from the Department of Public Works if the development cannot be connected to the sewer system. The property owner, ACC Realty LLC, shall remove the 2 existing dead trees abutting 1015 North Street. Fire department, N, the fire department reserves the right to withhold its sign-off on the final occupancy based on fire apparatus ability to safely navigate the site. O, the applicant shall provide the town with all necessary easement plans along Andover Street and North Street for the sidewalk, curbing, and any other town-owned facilities. The town meeting vote is required for acceptance of easements. The applicant shall be responsible for recording the easements at the Registry of Deeds. Well, that is the completion of the additional provisions. So with that, we have a motion for approval. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we have a second.
Second.
So with that, Mr. Ryder. Mr. Ryder?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fowler? You get yes?
Yes.
Mr. Fratelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye as well. So we have the approval for the submission. All right, gentlemen, congratulations. It took some time, quite a bit of time, but we appreciate your effort.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Fowler. Yes, Mr. Fowler.
if I may say to Andy, he's been a gentleman through this whole process.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Nice work.
your
I don't-
consideration, and excited to keep it moving forward.
I think that this, sometimes the board gets accused of moving too fast with things. I think that we will definitely not be accused of that for this project. No one can say we did not do our due diligence throughout this process. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So, with that, does anyone have any old business they wish to discuss? Any new business?
Well, we have one thing, don't we?
We have correspondence, and that was just a confirmation of the update to our schedule, which reflects our votes from our last meeting to add the May 4th meeting and to delete the June 22nd meeting. Anything from the town planner at this time?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Just the only thing I want to say before I take the motion to adjourn is I just appreciate everybody's efforts on this. Tonight, we did a full meeting. We got through a lot of stuff tonight. We were able to get some things completed. And I appreciate everybody's efforts on all of these in this strange circumstances that we have to do them. And I hope that we'll continue to be able to do that so that we can get the people's business done as we go forward. And I appreciate everybody's efforts. Thank you again. With
Mr.
that,
Chairman, I have one comment if I could.
Mr. Fattalia.
I also wanted to echo my thank you to Dawn for all the hard work she does. She probably has the hardest job here, keeping control of all the minutes and comments and so forth. And Anna as well, you do a great job keeping us in line. And also to Jason and Brian for their efforts trying to get this put together. You know, I'm not a big fan of this, but I mean, we have to work what we got to work with. So, but thank you guys all for doing an extraordinary job. You should be commended by everybody for doing that. So thank you.
All right, I'll add only one thing. I'll add Alex into that list as well for the
Yes.
back office work to get all this done. All right, so with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Good evening and thank you, everyone.
Hey, it's 11:05. You know.
Everyone stay safe.
Right.